Obviously, because it knows it's me. That's why. And technology knows I don't like it. Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. So obviously we have a 10-step selling program. What we're going to go through is steps 1 through 4 today, or most of it anyway. We'll start out in step number 1. Step number 1 being, of course, the entry. Purpose of the entry, obviously, is to gain entry into the house. Typical objections that we're going to hear at the door is things like, I changed my mind. We can't afford it right now. This is a waste of your time. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste mine. We're not going to buy anything today. We have other projects that we're going to do, before we go ahead and do windows. Though windows is on our on our deal, we're just not going to do it right now. Okay. So regardless of what we're going to, does that sound about right to most of you that have run appointments before? I think there's a gentleman out in Salt Lake City, used to work for Anderson, sir, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just about what you would typically hear, right? Okay.
Yep.
So what our responses are need to be now. The first thing that you'll see in the paperwork that everybody handed out is the 3 closes. The first one is going to be special trip. The special trip close is something that our JSPs will be using as well. So we want to make sure that we're saying the same thing. So special trip. Somebody sits there and tells you, look, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste yours. We're not ready to do that right now. Look, I understand that, folks. I mean, I really do. It takes time and money to go ahead and do everything, right? And sometimes we have a lot more time than we do money. However, I rearranged my entire schedule just to be here with you folks. And I made a special trip to do so. Okay. Now I fulfill my end of the obligation by showing up on time. All I'm asking you to do is to fulfill your end of the obligation as you agreed upon on the telephone, to allow me to go ahead and get paid by showing you the window, measuring the window, and giving you a price that's going to be good for a year. What you typically do with that price is going to be up to you. Does that sound fair enough? Okay. One of the questions that we want to get away from that is overly used in the industry is the whole, is that okay with you? Is that all right? How does that sound? A better question to ask is, does that sound fair enough to you? Because it takes a special kind of an asshole, to be honest with you, to sit there and say no to that. Okay. To ask somebody, does that sound fair enough? It really takes a special kind of person to say, no, that doesn't sound fair. So the question that we want to get used to asking when we say a lot of things, and you're going to hear this come up throughout this entire 10-step presentation, is, does that sound fair enough? Okay. So again, our special trip close, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I rearranged my entire schedule just to go ahead and be here. And I made a special trip to do so. That being said, I fulfill my end of the obligation by showing up on time. All I'm asking you to do is fulfill your end of the obligation as you agreed upon when the appointment was set or the meeting was set, to allow me to at least get paid by showing you the window, measuring the window, and giving you a price that's good for a year. What you do with that price, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, strictly up to you. Does that sound fair enough? Okay. From there, we also have our waste of time close. Waste of time, somebody says, look, I don't know why we're going to be doing this. I know we set the appointment up, but look, I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to waste mine. We're not going to do anything right now. I certainly understand that, Mr. or Mrs. Customer. I get it. Again, it takes time and money to sit there and do everything. And if you're anything like me, you probably have more time than you do money. However, your time is no more valuable to you than mine is to me. Now, that being said, I rearranged my entire schedule just to go ahead and be here, and I made a special trip to do so. And that'll flow us right back into the special trip. Okay. We tend to see this a little bit more on the canvas side of things than you would if you're running like a TV or a newspaper or a radio appointment. Canvassing tends to see a little bit more of this, what I call porching, getting porched at the door, getting porched in the living room a little more often. So these 3 closes that we have here will all roll back into our special trip. At the same time, too, our JSPs will be saying a lot more of this as well. When the JSP sets the appointment, they're basically going to be telling them, look, the way this works, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, is this. And they're going to give them the agenda, and then they're going to button it down with, now, keep in mind, tomorrow night being, I don't know, a Wednesday night is not a club or church or bowling night for you folks, is it? No, it's not. Great. The reason why I'm saying that is my senior partner, when they come out, we rearrange their entire schedule for them to make sure that they're here, and they make a special trip to do so. So that being said, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, is that going to catch everybody home okay? Yes, it will. So we want to make sure that we're reiterating what they're saying as well. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So that's basically how that'll work. Same thing with open mind. There may be a time where you'll just have to toss it out there and say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, look, can you at least do me a favor? Just one little bitty favor. What's that? All I ask you to do is to go ahead and keep, can you at least keep an open mind? Okay. If we can help each other out, great. And if we can't, at the very least, we'll shake hands and part to be buddies. Now that sounds fair enough to you, doesn't it? Okay. You may use all three at the same time. There are times that you're going to get that, hey, look, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I get it. Your time is valuable you as mine is to me. That being said, folks, look, I rearranged my entire schedule, blah, 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 blah. And we're going to go through the special trip close. And in the end, folks, all I'm asking you to do is just keep an open mind, folks. If we can help each other out, great. If we can, at the very least, we'll shake hands and part to be buddies. Does that sound fair enough to you? So we want to make sure that we say this. Will this help every single time? Well, of course not. But you will get into more doors when people are trying to port you at the door by knowing these. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? The guys, if you have questions, let's not sit on this shit. If you have a question, go ahead and ask. It's cool. Ask, because somebody else may be thinking the same thing. So any questions about this at all? Can't argue with a confident group, I guess. Who had a question? No questions. Okay, great. So we got to make sure that we know these. Again, by knowing them, you will get into a house or two that you normally would have walked away from. Okay. What we don't want to do is we don't want to use the whole excuse that we're going to be cheaper than everybody else, blah, 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 because we may not be. Okay. We may not be. Obviously, most of you guys on this phone call and gals that are on this call, you guys know that our promotional pricing is going to typically put us about 89 to 92, 93% of our competitors. We're going to come in at a more cost-effective price on our triple pane product that they're going to be on their double pane. Our tip pricing is still going to be better than about 60% of most of our competitors. And even our most highest price point at sweep is still going to sit there and be better than 30 to 35% of most of our competitors. So price is not what we want to go ahead and use here. Again, this customer set an appointment for us to come out. They have to understand that we made a special trip to come out there and be there. And if anything, they should at least give us the opportunity that they agreed upon. And if this guilts them into keeping their appointment, then so be it. Because when we throw a masterful presentation out there at them, these people are going to sit there and then turn around and buy. So we just got to make sure that we come up with enough that we're saying the same things that they're saying at the door, but something that makes sense. And this makes sense to explain it this way, or does anybody disagree?
Hey, Terry, real quick, if you don't mind, when you're talking about competitors and price points and those general averages, you're talking about double pane competitors, correct?
That is correct. Okay.
So you're not actually talking about an apples to apples. And I think that's an important distinction when we're talking to junior partners about this very thing, or even for senior partners to understand that when we're making a reference about competitive advantage, that we're not even trying to compete as a higher luxury grade product. We're just talking about average, pricing for double pane products. So, because that's, we're not really offering a true apples to apples in that example.
No, we're not. And we don't have the ability to offer a true apples to apples because most companies just don't sell a triple pane product. Right. However, for our competitors that do sell a triple pane product, we're going to come in at a better price point than 99% of everybody. Okay. The one thing I would tell you is when I was with Renewal by Anderson, one of the great things about working for Renewal by Anderson is we knew up front when we walked in the house, we were going to be the most expensive SOB out there, and we knew it. We knew it. We didn't have to figure out in our mind where this was going to put us in the overall, scheme of things. We were going to be the most expensive, and we knew that. Okay. And then we pitched accordingly. We knew that we were going to have to do the things that other companies don't have to do to be able to sell the product that we have, because we come in at such a high price point. We can still go ahead and do all those things, but the advantage we now have is that we're usually going to come in at a much lower price point than everybody else. We can't beat everybody, but we're going to be pretty darn close, though. Okay. So the important part is to try to sell the appointment when somebody's trying to push us back, because that's all we need to do is sell the appointment. We get into the appointment, we do our job, and then good things start happening once we do our job. Okay. So that's what the goal is for the 3 closes, whether it be special trip, open mind, or waste of time. We want to make sure that we can say this cleanly, because this will get us into more houses when people start pushing back. Okay. It's not going to save all of them, but even if it saves 1 or 2 or 3 a month, that's 1 or 2 or 3 more. That'd be better in the long run. Okay. So the next part of this would put us now into our warm-up. So the warm-up. The purpose of the warm-up is to make friends with John and Mary customer and create an atmosphere conducive for selling. The important part here is to not get into pitching. We have got to stay away from business here. The average person buys from people they trust, like, and they believe to be friends. We need to be friends first, not go straight into guns and start trying to pitch right away. By being better friends with the customer as well, will allow us to say some more difficult things in the close should something have to come up. Because again, friends can say things to friends that strangers can't sit there and say to strangers. Okay. So the purpose of the warm-up is to make friends with John and Mary customer and create an atmosphere conducive for selling. One of the things that people have a problem with when it comes to warming up is all the phony bullshit that everybody tries to come up with and tries to figure out, what should we talk about? Man, that's a nice fish on your wall. Wow, you're a Cowboy fan, so am I. That's an awesome car out there. What a pretty dog. Most people know you don't give a crap about that, and they know it. Okay. So for me, the easiest warm-up question to ask when you get into somebody's house, find a shady place to sit, figure out where you want to sit, try to get everybody there, and then simply ask. Folks, let me ask you a question before we get started. How long have y'all lived here? Because that thing can get us anywhere we want to go. Okay. Even if a customer is being crappy, even if they are, well, how long I have to live here? What's that got to do with windows? Look, the last guy who was here for 4 hours, man. I don't want to put up with that bull crap. So what's that got to do with anything? You know what, sir? It really doesn't. However, one of the advantages I have of doing this job, sir, is I get to visit and run around and see folks like yourselves. My wife and I just moved here to Phoenix. In fact, our place of residency right now is the Drury Inn and Suites at I-10 and University. So what we're trying to do is find a place to live. And as I was coming in, I saw a couple of houses that were for sale. Let me ask you a question, sir. I mean, is this a good neighborhood to go ahead and live in for a place, for a person like me looking for a place? If you had to do it all over again, would you do it all over again? There's no way to get into trouble here. And it's very easy to warm up here. And the average customer wants to help. They do. They want to help. Yeah, it's a great neighborhood. Oh, yeah, you guys will love it here. What's the crime rate like? What's this? What's this? What's this? It'll lead us into a very easy conversation without having to fake anything. It doesn't matter whether you lived in Dallas or Portland or Seattle or Salt Lake for 50 years. It doesn't matter. They don't know that. So it's a very easy conversation to go ahead and get into. It's very easy. How long have you all lived here? We've lived here 7 years. Awesome, 7 years. Reason why I'm asking, my wife and I just moved here. Or, you know what? Obviously, I look like I'm 12 years old, but my girlfriend and I, we just got pregnant. We're trying to move out of our apartment and get into a home. Saw a couple houses for sale. Would this be a good place for people like myself that's just starting out to go ahead and move in here? What is it about the neighborhood do you like? What's the crime rate like? Is it noisy out here? How are the neighbors? Things like that. What are the schools like? Most people want to answer those questions because they want to help. The average person wants to help. I've always found that's the easiest way to warm up without having to sit there and try to make up something that sounds a little bit phony and it sounds like you're trying to force a warm up issue. Just ask how long they live there. Some of you guys that's been doing this for a while, you probably have your own way, and that's fine too. Okay. If it works that way for you, then it works that way. That's okay. What I'm throwing out there, though, is that's one of the easiest ways to warm up is ask the question how long you've lived here, and then play off of that that you're looking for a new place to go to or whatever it may be. You know, my wife and I have lived on the other end of town for 40 years. We're looking to get out of Dodge and move somewhere else. You know, the house is too big or too small for us, whatever. What's this neighborhood like? Most people will be open to that and will discuss that with you. Does anybody here disagree with that or have something different to go ahead and say? Anybody?
Nope.
Again, can't argue with a confident group. Okay, so for me, when I'm warming up, that's what I would sit there and do is I would use that question right there. Okay. But during your warm up, there are some things that we want to make sure that we are asking. Okay. Number one, of course, is what prompted you to set the appointment with us? You know, maybe it was because their neighbor had windows done, or we did windows for a friend of theirs. I don't know. But let's go ahead and ask that question. The big question that we want to make sure that we're asking, especially if you have an elderly couple, if you have a single elderly person, or you have a single person or a married couple that is very young. Okay. The question we want to make sure that we ask them is, you know, if you don't mind my asking, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, when you do a project like this, is there anybody that helps you with this decision? Let's see what they tell us from there. If the answer is yes, then we want to follow up with, do they help you financially? In other words, do they help you pay for this? Or is this just something that you seek their advice because they give good, you know, they give good advice? Which one is it? Okay. Most of you on here have been current senior partners or sales reps in other places before. And what you found is when you got down into the close and you're trying to close something, all of a sudden the third baseman comes up, in other words, and they're sitting there telling you, oh, you know what? This sounds all great, but I've got to talk to my son first. My son helps me with these decisions. Now, that's because a mistake was made because when we warm up, we didn't ask, does somebody help you make these type of decisions when you get ready to do this? We have to ask. If the answer is yes, and they say, my son helps me financially, then at that point, what we want to do is try to find out where the son lives. If the son lives locally, then we probably want to reschedule this when the son is there. If whoever it is they're checking with happens to live out of town, well, then we have to move forward and continue to go ahead and pitch this no matter what. Then we're still going to have to go ahead and pitch it. Okay. If it's they're seeking advice, then we address that. Okay, awesome. I see that. Who is it? It's going to be my son. Great. Just keep moving forward with your presentation. Whether somebody helps financially or not, unless they're local or not local, we do not dig in anymore at this point, but we do know to expect it. So as our presentation goes, we will change that up a little bit. So it puts us in a better position to be able to go ahead and overcome that when we get down into the close. Okay. But our presentation will change just a little bit knowing that information. Again, it doesn't mean we're going to bounce out. We want to make sure that we're looking for reasons to stay and pitch within reason. Okay. One party appointments or one leggers, as some of us would sit there and call it. On a national average, they close at 9.5%, whether you're selling windows, doors, kitchens, bathrooms, carpets, roofing, siding, it doesn't matter. The national average close in in-home selling for a one-legger or a single party, a one party, is 9.5%. The national average close with all decision makers are present is 32.6%. Big number. I'm not a big fan of you guys pitching one legs. I'm not a big fan of that at all. Okay. My challenge with one legs is when you go ahead and give a price, then you give your customer a price and you give your competitor a target for them to go ahead and shoot at. So I'm not a real big fan of that. But I do understand that at times one leggers have to be pitched, single parties have to be pitched, and there are times we're going to have to do it. I just don't want to see that number at a real high rate because they're not closing. And for the ones that do close, everybody always wants to celebrate the single part, the one legger that sold until they sit there and get 9 or 10 that don't. And then all of a sudden, one legs become a problem. Okay. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to give our marketing department a reason and encouragement that it's okay to set up one leggers, okay, or single parties. We don't want to go ahead and do that. So again, there are exceptions to all rules, and at times we're going to have to do it. But we do have to ask that question in our warm up to find out what we are or not running into. Is there anybody here that disagrees with that or sees it in a different way? Anybody?
I definitely agree. Terry, given your experience in your different companies, what would you say is an acceptable percentage of the appointments that we run be like a one-legger? You know, at what point is it a red flag, like we need to train on it? Where is it acceptable?
So what I've always done and what I've always looked at is when 15% or more of the appointments that you run are one leggers, we have a problem. One leggers are going to exist, and that's just part of the deal. Okay. We're not going to be able to get rid of them completely. There is a way to sell one leggers at a higher rate. There is. It's not anything that's taught anymore, thanks to social media, but there is a way to go ahead and pitch one leggers and be better at it. It's just not something that's taught, again, because of social media and what you have to do to get that to work. Okay. So 15% or less, I'm okay with. If it gets to be higher than 15%, then we have a problem. Because if you think about it, 15 from 100 is 85. So if you have a 15% one leg rate and you're not pitching any of them at all, the best demo rate you're going to be able to get is 85%. That doesn't count your no demos. That doesn't count your no homes. But if we had none of those, the best demo rate you can get is going to be 85%. Okay. So we've got to keep that number lower than 15%. Now, the part that we as MSPs, just so you senior partners understand, one legs are also caused by sales reps also. Okay. Sales rep gets to a house, customer sits there and says, look, my wife set this appointment up. We're not going to be able to do windows, and I'm the one that does all the financing. And my wife is getting ready to leave in about an hour anyway because she's got to go pay, she's got to go play cribbage with her friends. Hell, I don't even know what the hell cribbage is, but I know people play it. Okay. Mr. Rep right away says, oh, okay, well, yeah, I understand that. Tell you what, we'll go ahead and give you a call back when it's more convenient in the future. And then they report that as a one leg. Well, that's not necessarily a one leg. The wife is home. He said she's going to be leaving in an hour. Then we have to sit there and we can pitch that for the hour and then see if we can earn more time for her to sit there and cancel her cribbage deal. We don't know that she won't, but we have to take the shot at it in this case here because all parties are available. Another thing that senior partners cause one legs to is being late. Funny thing about a sales rep is if you ask them on 100 leads, what time did you get there? It's funny, they'll always tell you they were on time. However, when you set a once a week meeting, that same person is almost never on time. Now, how is that possible? How's that possible? Okay. One leg should be caused by a rep because of that. Mr. Rep sits there and shows up 10 or 11 minutes late. Husband or the wife got tired of waiting and says, babe, just talk to the window man or the window lady when they get here. And I'm going to go run my errands and do what I've got to do. All of a sudden, that's a one leg now. Now, from the senior partner or the sales rep side is, well, it's only 10 minutes. 10 minutes is not that big a deal. Depends on who you're asking. 10 minutes is an eternity if you're holding your breath. If you don't believe me, everybody hold their breath for 10 minutes. Let me see if you can do it. I know my smoking ass can't. But 10 minutes is an eternity, depending on who is doing the waiting. So we have to make sure that we're showing up on time and we're not creating these one legs. But if all the things are being done right, Cody, then the bottom line is if it's over 15%, that means our marketing department is having a challenge here. Now we can go ahead and we can train towards that to work with them on that and being better at keeping all parties home. And at the same time, we'd be better at confirming the appointment when either the managing senior partner or the canvas manager is confirming that appointment the day before, they may have to lean on that a little bit more to find out that if all parties are going to be there. Okay. So in a roundabout way, did that answer all that for you, Code?
Yep, thank you.
Anybody else got anything to say about that? Awesome. I hope as we go through this, we'll get a little more audience participation, but as of now, very cool. Okay. So that's what we want to make sure that we're doing.
Hey, Terry,
when we're,
Can I
yes,
have
sir.
you back up just a second? When we're talking to the homeowner who's kind of giving us the narrative of, hey, my wife's got to leave in an hour, that type of thing, how do you approach dealing with that specific situation so that you can better control the narrative? I remember there was a case where Kate and Matt went out to an appointment, and then this is kind of becoming, a case of legend and lore, because it was what was it, 15 minutes, Kate, I think, that you guys had, and then you earned an hour, and then you earned another hour, and you were there for like 4 hours, and there were all kinds of rebuttals in there. But how would you recommend dealing with those types of things from a word track perspective?
Well, when when you're going to get something like that and somebody's telling you you're going to be leaving in the next hour or 45 minutes or whatever it may be, we were invited out there, so we've earned the right to ask, really, where's your husband going, or where's your wife going? We've earned that right. Okay. We showed up. We're not like the cable man. We didn't sit there and say we'd be there between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock. We said we'd be there at 10 o'clock, whether it's 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late. We showed up on time. So we earned the right to ask. So I would, in this case here, Mark, I would just ask, so we can play this out. You're telling me that your wife has to leave in about an hour, sir? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't mind my asking, sir, where's your wife going to be bouncing out to, if you don't mind my asking?
Oh, she's going to go play Quidditch with her witch friends.
She is. Okay. I got to ask a question, sir. I don't even know what the hell cribbage is. What is that?
Well, it's a famous game. I'm surprised you don't know about it, but there's a big World Cup for it and everything. So, they're pretty hardcore.
They're pretty hardcore about it. So let me ask you a question. Okay. That being said, sir, we set this appointment up, to be here at this time at 10 o'clock. Now, so I did my part. I went ahead and showed up. Let me ask you this. As we go through this, though, and your wife's getting ready to leave in, say, an hour, but as we go through this, if your wife is needing a little bit more time, or we're needing a little bit more time, would your wife be willing to stick around with us for a little bit longer?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. So,
okay, then at this point, I would take a shot and go ahead and go at it. Again, we made a special trip to come out there. Okay. We have to be able to hold them accountable to the decision that they made, because they're going to hold us accountable to it. So I would dig in and find out. I would also find out, how important is it that they sit there and take off? If she just has to go shopping, the stores aren't going anywhere. They don't close till 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night anyway, So we just have to kind of play it out that way. But that's what I would ask first always, is really, okay, if you don't mind my asking, where's she happen to need, where's she going to, or where is he going to? And play off from there. And again, you could go back and use an open mind. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, can I ask you for a big favor?
sure.
Okay. Look, can you at least keep an open mind to a good offer? Can you at least do that? If we can help you guys out, great. And if we can, at the very least, we'll shake hands and part to be buddies. But the bottom line is, though, is what I'm going to go ahead and do for you while I'm here is I'm going to tell you, I'm going to inspect all of your windows so I get an idea of what I'm dealing with. From there, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the company, so you know who you're talking to, because you have to at least know that. At the same time, too, I'll give you all the many window options that you have. And then from there, we'll get these puppies all measured up, and I'm going to go ahead and give you that low price that we were talking about when we set the meeting up. However, in the event we're not able to go ahead and get that meeting or get that partnership going today, at the very least, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and give you a price that's going to be good for a year. And what you do with that price is strictly up to you. Does that sound fair enough to you, too, Mr. Plessier? Does that sound fair enough to you?
That sounds fair enough.
Okay,
I'm not gonna do that.
fantastic. So I would go down that road. So as we go through this and we start getting into the company and we start setting the agenda and whatnot, you'll find that your agenda more often than not is your friend if you'll use the agenda more often. It's no different than the JSP out at the door. If you learn to use your agenda better, your agenda will allow you to overcome a lot of shit. It really will. And if anything, it'll put you in a position to get them to listen to you. And that's where the magic starts once we can get them to listen. Okay. Anybody else have anything else to say at all?
Well, since you want us to talk, I could tell you my scenario I had last week. I have what I like
Okay.
to call,
I can't see you, so tell me who you are.
it's Michelle, sorry, I didn't realize it.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
I one-legger last week. It was set up by the JSP as she's the decision maker. I asked her questions: when you do a project like this, who do you involve? She immediately referenced her husband. I asked her why he wasn't here, and she said they have absolutely no days off together for the next 10 days. She didn't offer me any time. I probed it, and I went ahead and ran it. Now, would you say that was a mistake?
well, let me ask you this. Did you sell it?
No.
Then probably a mistake. Okay.
It's always 2020 though, babe.
So if we might have should have gone a different route with that person. So a lot of times on these single parties or these one-leggers, again, as we call them, you're always going to get that, I don't need to talk to my wife, or I don't need to talk to my husband. We've talked about this before. I'm the one that makes all decisions, blah, 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 blah. We've all heard that bullshit, right? We've all heard it. In my mind, the easiest way to overcome it is to muck up the water, mess things up. So if I'm talking to you, Miss Michelle, and you're telling me that you talked to your husband and you can make this decision because you and your husband have talked, and you don't need to talk with him, you just need to know the price, and you're going to let me know yay or nay. My comeback would be, okay, well, let me ask you this then, Miss Michelle. You said that you don't need to talk to your husband because you guys have already done all of that. Is that correct? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. In this
Okay.
case, she did.
So let me ask you this then. Since you guys have talked about this, what color of window are you guys looking for?
Probably the same as we have.
Which is what color now, since I can't see your house right now?
White.
It's white? Okay. And on those white windows, are we looking for some sort of a composite product, or are we looking for a vinyl product? What are you looking for?
I don't know, same as what's there, I guess.
Well, right now what you have is aluminum, and we can't put aluminum in right now because aluminum doesn't meet the Energy Star requirements. So are we looking for something that meets the Energy Star requirements, is what I'm assuming? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So let me ask you a different question. The spacing in between the two panes of glass, are we looking for, number one, a double pane versus a triple pane? And number two, are we looking for a quarter of an inch, half an inch, 5/8, 3/8, 7/8, or 1 inch? What are we looking for? Keeping in mind, the reason I'm asking you is anything you do or don't do to the window causes the window to act differently. And at the same time, too, it also sits there and changes its cost. So which one will we be looking at here?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Okay, you know what? We'll go ahead and circle back to that later. That's no problem. Let me ask you this: the gas in between the two panes of glass, are we looking for argon gas? Are we looking for an argon gas nitrogen gas blend? Are we looking for krypton gas? Are we looking for an alpha 10 gas, which is a combination of krypton, argon, nitrogen, and 7 other gases? Which one are we looking for?
I have no idea.
Yeah, you don't know shit, do you, Mr. Customer? So the point still being, though, is this: you muck up the waters with an answer that you know they can't give. So after you've given me a couple, I don't know, then I would turn around and say this: well, Miss Michelle, let me ask you a quick question here. I'll ask you a much easier question. Are you open to suggestion, ma'am? Are you?
Sure.
Okay, let's do this. Okay, let's go ahead and reschedule this when your husband is going to be here. Now, I understand he doesn't want to be here for all this, and I get that. So here's what we'll do. Number one, we'll reschedule this when he's here. I'll make sure that when I come back, we'll skip all the dog and pony show, because I know he don't want to go through all the dog and pony. I know that. And we're going to be as respectful of his time and your time as we possibly can, because in turn, I'm going to hope that you're going to be respectful of mine. And let's go ahead and do this. I'll come back out, and literally all I'm going to do is sit and visit with you for a quick second, kind of pick your brain and see what you might be looking for. From there, I'm going to inspect all of your windows, possibly point out some challenges you may or may not know that you had. In the event I find any of these challenges, I'll offer some temporary solutions for you that you can use until you eventually get around to doing this. From there, I'll tell you a little bit about the company so you know who you're talking to, give you all the many window options that you have, get your husband's input, get your input, offer some suggestions that may or may not make this more cost effective for you. And then from there, we'll get these puppies all measured up. And if we can help each other out, great. And if we can, at the very least, we'll give you that low, or we'll give you a price that's going to be good for a year. And what you do with it's up to you. Now that sounds fair, doesn't it? He would be okay with that, wouldn't he?
Well, you can't meet for like 10 days though.
He what?
You need no time between now and 10 days. We work opposite schedules. I'm off today. He's off tomorrow, but I won't be available.
Okay. Well, then we'll reschedule that for 10 days from now.
Okay.
You know, one thing is for sure, they have to be home together at some point in time, especially if they had kids. They had to make kids somewhere. They didn't just do it in the back of a Chevy, right? Okay. So then we'll reschedule that for 10 days out. But the problem is when you sit there and you one leg pitch something, you give your competitor a target to shoot at, and the chances of these people calling you back are very slim compared to actually doing business with you. Because what happens is a company like Renewal by Andersen, they do their job. They make sure everybody gets home. They get in front of these people. They give a price that's 3 times more than what we're going to go ahead and give. They do a real nice and a masterful job, and all of a sudden they get that job. We can talk about Renewal by Andersen and their prices all we want, but the bottom line is they sold $4.7 billion worth of windows out of $9.6 billion. They command about 48% of the dollar volume in this industry, despite how expensive they are. And part of the reason why they do that is because they make sure that all decision makers are present, and they do a better job at it than others do. So we just have to be a little bit better at it and figure out the word track to use that doesn't sound shitty and it makes sense in the house. Your best thing, muck it up. Muck it up. The customers won't be able to answer that. Hell, half the window people that's on this call right now doesn't know the answers to half the questions I just asked. Okay. The customer is certainly not going to. So that's the direction I would have gone, Michelle, in something like that. And that goes back to a lot of those one legs. That's your better bet more often than not. Not every time, but more often than not it is. It's just muddy up the waters. Most
Thanks for
people won't be
explaining
able to
that,
answer.
Terry. That's a big one. I think that we come across a lot in the home is, somebody's working from home, or somebody had an emergency Zoom call, or, all the excuses that come out. But, using the agenda as your friend, as you put it, for some reason that just clicked with me this time. And hearing you put it that way in this context, I think that's a huge deal. And just getting them to say something to the effect of, I don't know. And then now you've got the leverage you need.
Welcome to the party, Mark.
Well, it's awesome. Good job. Eventually it connects, but thank you for going over that.
Does anybody else have any questions in regards to that at all?
A question, but one thing I would say is whenever somebody is telling you like, hey, we don't have any time together, 10 days out, opposite schedules. I know a lot of people who work a lot, and none of them have zero time with their spouse. What they're usually saying is we don't have a day off that coincides with each other's, but we don't need a day off. We can go there in the evening. We can go there in the morning. You know what I mean? Just start to dive into that and figure out what their schedule looks like, because again, a lot of people assume if it wasn't clarified that we don't meet people at, 7 o'clock at night or on the weekends as well.
Saturday or Sunday.
Yep.
Well, right. So there is another way to go about that. I didn't get into that, but there is another way to go, Cody, which is what you're saying, is we have to filter our way through that. Okay. Wife is sitting there saying to the husband, saying, look, my wife and I, we're going to be this for 10 days, blah, 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 blah. Then let's filter this out. Well, let me ask you a question, sir. Typically, when you're done with work, usually what time do you normally get home? I normally get home at 7 o'clock at night, whatever. Typically, what time does your wife normally get home? What days off she normally has versus what time you have? Well, I'm usually off on Saturdays, but my wife works Saturdays. Really, what time does she normally get home? She gets home at 6 o'clock at night. Tell you what, here's what we can do. We don't want to sit there and set up a meeting that as soon as your wife walks in, that the window man or the window lady is there. Why don't we do this? We'll schedule this for 7 o'clock Saturday night instead. Give her a chance to get home, grab a cold one, grab an ice, something cold to drink, put some comfy clothes on. Let's go ahead and do that instead. We can filter through that. We can. Okay. This is something that our JSPs have to be better at as well. It's like the whole proverbial this. Everybody hears this all the time. we're setting up a meeting. You know, my wife doesn't work, but I work from home. So you can set up the appointment at any time you'd like. Right away, everybody wants to set up that time for 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whatever it may be. Well, the question that we have to sit there and ask before we do any of that shit is, okay, so your wife doesn't work, but you work from home. Yes. Let me ask you a question, sir. Typically, what time of day are you normally done with work from home? Well, I'm usually done by 5 o'clock. Now we want to set that appointment for 6. It doesn't matter if a person works from home. The operative word is I work. That's the operative word. That's no different than going to 7-Eleven and trying to pitch some dude behind the counter who's working there. And everybody here that's been a sales rep at some point in time have all run into it. Appointment was set. People work from home. You get into the middle of it. Next thing you know, homeboy has to bounce out because he's got to take a telephone call. Look, my wife will take care of the rest of this. You talk to her. We'll talk about it and we'll get back with you. And out they go. So that works the same way with us when we're in the house. We find out somebody's working from home. Let's dig into that and find out what time are they normally done with work from home. And let's reschedule that when we know we can keep this person's attention. So you're right, Cody. Sometimes we have to dig into this a little bit and find out if we can help a customer make a decision. So good point, Cody. Good point. Any other questions? Thoughts, concerns, challenges? How much a woodchuck chuck anything?
Well, how much does a woodchuck chuck?
I don't know, but I do know they chuck wood because I saw the Geico commercial and that dude yelled out at him and said, you know, damn woodchuck, stop chucking my wood. So I know they do. They just didn't give us the answer as to how much.
I don't have any
All right.
woodchuck. You look tall, Terry. Is the iPad sitting on the ground?
Wow. For all you young ladies that are on this call, you might want to look in the other direction, Cody. Nice one, brother. Yes, I've got this thing down on one of those step up to be tall, sit down to be small stools. This way you guys could see me. Okay. All right. So we have found out the important thing is when we get ready to start when you get into the house and get the warm up, and I didn't bring this out, when you get into the house and get ready to start your warm up, it is very important that you pull out your talking pad or your notepad. I call it a talking pad, but you got to pull your notepad out. I don't give a damn how long you've been doing this. I do not care. You are not going to remember everything that a customer is saying. I guarantee it. You're not going to. And we'll talk about it as we go down in the future, as we get into the other steps as to how that actually affects the number one reason why somebody doesn't buy. The number one reason why somebody doesn't buy, the number one is they have to shop. They have to do their due diligence. They have to do their research because they never make a one-day decision until they do all that. Okay. And part of the reason why they're going to shop is because we're not writing things down. As we go through this, I'll explain and show everybody how that actually works. So we have to get our talking pad out and we have to start making notes. Okay. Theodore Roosevelt, right? Teddy Roosevelt, once upon a time said that nobody cares what you know until they know how much that you care. Okay. Customers have to see that. Taking notes, they see that. Most everybody on this call has been to a restaurant where somebody walks up and there's 4 people at your table and they say, how can I help you? And they don't write anything down and they memorize everything and everybody weirds out to that. We all think it's cool, but everybody weirds out. Man, I hope this thing's going to be right. Homeboy didn't take a single note at all. Okay. No different with us. Writing things down, people see that we care, and that's what makes everybody feel warm and fuzzy. So we've got to make sure that we pull that talking pad out. We got to pull that notepad out, and we've got to be able to write notes down because we are going to use that in this presentation. We are. Okay. So we pull out our pad. We've asked the questions that we need to ask. We're starting to write things down. We know how long they've lived there, things like that. If we believe that we've warmed up enough, then it's time to move on. So how long should a warm up last? That's the question that most people always ask me is how long does a warm up last? Typically, my answer is until you're not thinking about warming up anymore. If you're not thinking about warming up anymore, then you've probably warmed up enough. Okay. That's the best way I know to answer that. It may be 10, 15, 20, or 30 minutes. I don't know. I don't know. I've seen some cats that can warm up in 5, 10 minutes. It's the damnedest thing I ever saw. I've seen others that it takes 15 to 20 minutes and some that takes 20 to 30. I don't know. That's going to be up to who you are. But the easiest way to remember it is if you're not thinking of having to warm up anymore, you probably warmed up enough. You probably have. Okay. So at this point in time, we've figured out that we've warmed up enough. It's time to go ahead and move on. From there, I ask what I call my transition question. So typically the way that works is I'm warmed up with everybody and it's okay, look, folks, Windows. Obviously, Windows is something that you guys want to talk about. I apologize for sitting there and chattering like a chipmunk. My apologies. I'm a visitor. But let's get into Windows because I know that's why I'm here and that's what you guys are looking for. Let me ask you a question. How long have you thought about replacing your windows and doors? Okay. I want to ask that question as I'm transitioning into the next step. Asking that question earlier when you're in the middle of your warm up is very easy to get you out of warming up because that sounds like business. You start asking somebody, man, you guys got a nice house. Let me ask you, how long have you thought about replacing your windows? All of a sudden, they want to start talking about windows now. And now we're trying to find a way to stop from doing that. So I would caution everybody to not ask that question right away, especially for those people that are learning to be new senior partners. Okay. So I use it as my transition question. How long have you thought about replacing your windows and doors? Let's get an answer here. That answer is going to be helpful to us later in the future. What you're going to find is, I apologize, sir, but in Salt Lake City, the gentleman used to work for Renewal by Anderson. How long did you work for them, sir?
1 year.
For a year. And in your year's time that you were there, okay, if you ever asked anybody how long they thought about replacing their windows and door, what is the average answer you usually heard?
It was literally like I saw a commercial or my neighbors were getting windows and they just thought about it. They hadn't thought about it for long.
Okay. The average customer nationwide, the answer is usually going to be anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 years. That's the average customer. Okay. However, there's a lot of them, like my man here is sitting there saying that they didn't think about it until they saw the commercial or until, one of our juniors happened to knock on that door. Okay. Even if that's the case, that's okay. That's an answer we're going to go ahead and get to because we're going to use that answer later on. We're going to use it. All right. So you write that down. And then from there, you get into your agenda. Again, the agenda will calm things down a lot because keep in mind, all the customer understands at this point in time is that they're a salesman in their house trying to get into their wallet. That's the number one thing that the average customer is looking at is there's a salesman in the house. Okay. So what we want to go ahead and do is we want to give them the agenda. And the agenda for the most part is pretty much how I have that written out for you guys there. So let me ask you a question, Cam. How long have you folks thought about replacing your windows and doors, sir?
About 6 months.
About 6 months? Okay, 6 months. Cool. Let me go ahead and explain to you, sir, exactly what I'm going to do for you while I'm here, sir. Number one, I'm going to go ahead and inspect all of your windows so I get an idea of what I'm dealing with. Okay. Possibly point out some challenges you may or may not know that you had. In the event I find any challenges, offer some temporary solutions that you can use until you eventually get around to doing this. From there, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the company so you know who you're talking to. And then after that, what I'm going to do is give you all the menu window options that you have. Once we figure out what's best for you, I'll possibly make some suggestions that may or may not make this more cost effective for you. After that, we'll go ahead and get these puppies all measured up, and then we'll get you that low price we were talking about when we set your meeting up. However, in the event, for whatever the reason, we're not able to partner with one another today, what we'll then do is I'll go ahead and give you a price that's going to be good for a year, and what you do with it's up to you. Does that sound fair enough to you, sir?
Yeah.
There's your agenda right there. A lot of times putting the agenda out there like that will get a lot of these customers to calm down, because what you're going to find when you start asking certain questions, and we've all seen it, that these customers don't want to ask or answer because they think you're trying to trick them into giving them an answer or something like that. So your agenda, you put that out there that way, in the most customers' mind, it's, oh, okay, well, that's not so bad. I can live with that. That'll get most of these people to calm down. a little bit, okay? Does anybody have any questions about that part so far?
Do you also set the time limit too? Cause I like to tell them, hey, I'm gonna be here 60 to 90 minutes. Do we have any time crunches there that I'm not aware of?
No, you know what? I'm not a big fan of that, sir. Though there's an argument for both sides, okay? There is. I guess it depends on who you are as to whether you think that's a good idea or not, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of putting a time limit that way because some people are going to hold you to that time limit. It's like at the door. Our JSPs, one of the things they're supposed to say at the door is this is going to take approximately 60 to 90 minutes. Okay. Well, the challenge with saying 60 to 90 minutes, you get into a house and some people will hold you to that 60 to 90 minutes. And the funny thing is they don't remember the 90 minutes. They only remember the 60-minute part. You know, the only time you remember 90 minutes if it benefits you. So if you were a drinker and I told you, welcome to my bar, you're going to get the drink free for 60 to 90 minutes. What is it that you hear? You hear 90 minutes, right? Okay. When we tell a customer this is going to take 60 to 90 minutes, all they hear is 60 minutes because that's the benefit to them. Okay. So I'm not a big fan of that. However, I think you can answer the question in a different way, especially if somebody asks you how long this is going to take, or if you're wanting to put a time frame out there. I would go about it a little bit different, you know. Let me ask you a question, sir. You know, the amount of time I'm going to be here, let me ask you, how many windows do you have on your home, sir?
15.
You have 15 windows. And how many doors do you have, sir?
3.
3. Okay. So typically, sir, the way this works is this. Like I told you, one of the things I'm going to go ahead and do is inspect all your windows and doors so I get an idea of what I'm dealing with. That typically takes about 1.5 minutes per window and 1.5 minutes per door, sir. You got to figure going from one door to the next, one room to the next, moving curtains, things like that. So 1.5 minutes per 18 units, you're going to be roughly looking at 27 minutes or basically 30 minutes. From there, at some point in time, we're going to have to get these puppies all measured up. And then we're going to have to build the windows for you. So we're going to need to know the operation of the window, right? The colors, the screen choices that you have, the glass options and things like that you have. That typically takes me about 2 minutes per window to do that. So if you're looking at 18 units, it's another 36 minutes. So we're already sitting at a little over an hour already. And we haven't even talked about the company or answered any questions that you have. So what I would sit there and tell you is we're going to be respectful of your time as much as we can because I expect you to be respectful of mine. But at the same time, we want to make sure we get all the information that we can get so you can make the best decision for you and your family. So we got to know it's going to be at least an hour and 10 minutes or so, probably longer based on the questions that you have. Can we live with that? Are we going to be okay with that? That's a better way to answer that. Because
Right.
60 to 90 minutes, they don't know what we're supposed to do in 60 to 90 minutes. See, they don't know. So when we give them a number that, hey, to inspect the window, it's only 1 minute to 1.5 minutes per window, 99% of everybody will go, oh, that's not so bad. Yeah, well, it's not so bad till you talk about 18 units, partner. That's 1.5 minutes for 18 units. That's 27 minutes. So that's about 30 minutes. To build, that's another 36 minutes, boss. So you got to be looking at least an hour just to do that. So this is going to take a second, and I haven't even explained the company to you, given you all the many window options that you have, and answered any of your questions. So just to give you an idea, that's probably a little better to set that expectation up that way, sir, to be honest with you, as opposed to just giving them a hard number of 60 to 90 minutes, whether we need it or not.
Well, I don't expect them to understand it's gonna be exactly 60 to 90 minutes. I like to find out if they've got other plans going on right after our sales meeting, or if, you know, she's gotta go shopping and she wants to leave in an hour. You know, I just wanna make sure I've got both those people there, so.
And you can still do that going the other way. So if we were going ahead and explaining the 1.5 minutes and the 2-minute thing, stuff like that, you know, my thing then would be, well, you know, sir, so, you know, you're looking at least an hour and 10 minutes or so, and we haven't done this, or this. Let me ask you a question. Is there somewhere that you folks need to be that's going to prevent you from being able to do this? Then I would turn around and ask the question that way. When they sit there and say, well, yeah, my wife really wants to sit there and go to Walmart. Okay, I get it, sir. And we're going to try to be respectful of that so she can get out here to do that. However, keep in mind, you know, Walmart's 24 hours, depending on the Walmart you're going to. So if this happens run a little bit later, she's going to be able to hang out with us, right? She's not going to bounce, is she? You know? So, I mean, Who really wants to go to Walmart? I don't give a shit who you, hell, even Sam Walton didn't want to go to Walmart. You know? So we can still get your question answered, sir, and I see why you would want to set that up. We still can. I would just go about it a little bit different, that's all. Just a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
This way, a better
Sure.
expectation is set up for the customer as to what we're doing. You know? Any questions about that? Anybody? Does anybody have any questions at all? Thoughts, concerns, anything like that? Okay. Some of this I know is a little bit much because we haven't covered part of that, but you've heard me use the agenda now 3 or 4 times, which is what we're doing in this part of it right here, is we're going to give that agenda out before we inspect. Okay. Once we've got our agenda out and we're starting again to get into our inspection, what we want to make sure that we do in that inspection, again, what is the purpose of the inspection? The purpose of the inspection is to show or convince John and Mary customer that their home is woefully inadequate and in need of their immediate attention, and that the condition that exists is costing them money on a daily basis. Okay. They have to believe they need windows, not want them. You know, anybody here goes to a doctor sits there and says, hey dude, you got a cold, bro. Check this out. Here's a little thingy. Run down to Walgreens, get this prescription filled. It's going to cost you $200. But if you take these little pills, 3 days, your cold is going to be gone. But it's going to cost you a $200 bill. The average person's not going to do that because they don't need to get rid of a cold. However, you go to the same doctor and the doctor says, look, I got some news for you, sir. The problem is I'm going to give you a prescription. You take these pills for 3 days, it'll all go away. It's going to cost you about $800. But if you don't do it, your fucking ears are going to fall off of your body and your nose is going to sit there and grow 6 inches. Okay, all of a sudden now, you don't need that shit to happen. So you're going to spend the dough to be able to do what you got to do to make sure that doesn't happen. That's what the inspection is for. A customer has to understand and believe that the condition that exists in their home is costing them money each and every day. And the worst mistake they can make is to do nothing at all. And that's where we need to be at. The key to selling anything, selling 101. Number one, you have to make a friend. You have to control the environment and you have to manipulate the environment. Manipulating the environment doesn't mean that we're pulling shady shit. Manipulating the environment means that we are controlling that and doing and pushing that environment where we need it to go to. The second thing we have to have when it comes to selling is need, want, and desire. Want and desire is the easy part. Want and desire is the easy part. My 11-year-old grandson can get that part. That's the easy part. The hard part is need. That the customer believes that they need something now because they've gone all these years without it. And in their mind, they don't really need it that bad, or they've got it done already. Okay. And that's where the hard part is. And that's what our inspection is for. Our inspection is to sit there and create that need and make mountains out of molehills. So when we go into this inspection, the first thing that we want to do is we want to explain to the customer how we map the house out. We start at the front door. We start with the first window to the right of that door. That's line 101, and then 102, 103, 104, 105, all the way around that house. If it's a second floor, then we're going to start with 201, 202, 203, 204, all the way around that house. The next thing that we have to do is we have to sit there and ask our hot button question. Okay. There is a hot button question that we're going to go ahead and ask. And our hot button question is, let me make sure I put this in here for you. Yep. Hot button question. Let me ask you a question, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. When you take your old windows out and put your new windows in, what exactly do you want your new windows to do for you, and be specific? When you ask this question, you have to pick a customer. Do not just throw the question out and leave it at that, or these two will stare at each other because nobody wants to talk. So if I'm standing there with John and Mary, I would sit there and right away and say, okay, John and Mary, let me ask you a question. When you take your old windows out and put your new windows in, what exactly do you want your new windows to do for you? Be specific. John, what are you looking for? Get an answer from him. Maybe his answer is, well, I want the windows to look nicer. You want the windows to look nicer. Okay, I get it. Mary, is that important to you as well? Yes, it is. What else is important to you? I want more energy efficiency. More energy efficiency. I could see that. John, do you feel the same way? Yeah, I feel the same way. What else are you looking for, sir? You get an answer from one customer, you verify it with the other, then you get the other's answer, and then you verify it with the other, and you go back and forth until all answers are exhausted. Okay. You must keep everybody involved. I've seen too many of these hotshot wannabe sales reps that sit there and say, well, the easiest way to close a deal is you got to close the decision maker. Okay. FYI, it's their freaking house, guys and gals. Everybody's a decision maker when it comes to their damn house. Everybody is. So to sit there and talk to one more than you do the other causes a problem. Number one, you get that person feeling like they're being ignored. And number two, you're not getting his or her input. And we need their input because that might be the input you need to get this deal. And we don't know that if we're not asking. So you get an answer from one, you verify with the other, you get that answer and verify with the other until there are no more answers left. We want to make sure that we're writing this down on our talking pad, because now when we go to inspect, we're going to use their answers that they gave us. The easiest way to sell, ladies and gentlemen, is to make it the customer's idea. Okay. Not sit there and try to talk them into shit. Talking into stuff works for some people, but those people that talk people into crap also have a higher cancellation rate. I assure you of that. Okay. So the best way is to make it their idea. Now, when we get this list together and we have our talking pad with us, now when we go to look at windows, we can then sit there and say, okay, well, earlier you said energy efficiency. I could see why you would say that. Single pane window. These are aluminum windows. I could feel the heat coming through. I could feel the cold coming through. I get that. You also sat there and said something that looks better. Well, you got these anodized aluminum windows. I could see that. I mean, you don't have a dress in your closet, ma'am, that matches this. So I could see that. I could, we're going to use their answers against them. And then from there, we're going to make up our own when we need to. You said this, you said this. You know what? I'm surprised, Cam. I'm surprised you didn't say security with these locks that you have. They're very inefficient locks. They're not good at all. You don't have 90-degree interlocking rails. Very easy to break into this. So I'm surprised you didn't say security. Then we will add to what we see. Okay. So we need the answers from them to be able to inspect better so we can use their answers. That is way easier than trying to talk them into shit. That is way easier. Okay. The question on the table, though, is how do we sit there and inspect? Well, a lot of different ways to go ahead and inspect. I put some notes down here for you, what to be looking for. Corners of windows, especially aluminum. So aluminum windows, does everybody on this phone call understand the difference between boxed and butted ends and mitered corners? Anybody? Is there anybody on this phone call that does not know what that is?
I would like an explanation.
Okay, good one. So on aluminum windows are going to have two type of corners where the window meets. Okay. The top meets to the side, the sides meet to the bottom. So you have these are mitered corners. Mitered corners is a 45-degree cut that joins the window here. That's a mitered corner. Boxed and butted end would be something similar to this, where the windows just meet like that. That's boxed and butted. Okay. Most of your aluminum windows, or all of your aluminum windows, are going to be one of the two here, either boxed and butted or mitered. You want to pay attention to that as you're walking up to the house. As you're walking to the house and knocking on the door, from the outside, look at those right away. A lot of times if they have aluminum windows, especially if the house is a little older, 10, 15 years or more, these mitered corners will start to split and open up, or these boxed and butted ends will do the same thing and they'll open up. Okay. That opening of the frame causes dirt and dust infiltration to come in. All right. So who here has everybody ever seen carpets being replaced here? Anybody have not seen it? Very cool. So when a carpet is being replaced and they pick up the old carpet and they pick up the padding that's underneath it, what you find on the ground is this real fine sand that's on there. Okay. The problem with the sand is the sand beats up the carpet. Everybody thinks walking on the carpet is what tears it up. That's not true. Walking on the carpet, vacuuming the carpet, moving furniture causes the carpet to move, okay, and slide back and forth a little bit. The sand that's on the ground tears up the carpet from the bottom up, not wears out from the top down. You look at all that sand that's there. If you actually think that you walked that shit in your house yourself and you walked it in, then I've got a very nice red bridge in San Francisco Bay that I'll sit there and rent out to you for really cheap. Okay. 90% of the dirt, the dust that comes in people's houses, not because it was tracked in, because the windows and doors allowed it to come in. Okay. Clearly, we don't sit there and think that the dirt and dust is coming into the house and stopping at the windowsill, right? Now, people will sit there and tell you, well, that's because we tracked it in. Good. Then check their furniture out. When you see the dirt and dust that's on it, do this along their furniture and do one of these. So who walked on your furniture then? Who walked on the coffee table? Nobody did. The dirt and dust that came into your windows and doors. So the splitting of your mitered corners in your box and buttered in causes air infiltration. So that's something that we want to make sure that we're looking at. Your wood windows are going to be the same way. You have a lot of these box and butted or T-locks or mitered corners, same thing. But as the wood windows expand and contract, these things start opening up a little bit. As they open up a little, the dirt and dust start to come in. Okay. Even though the windows are locked and closed. So some numbers to go ahead and throw at everybody here. If you talk to your refrigerated air company, if you talk to your gas company, if you talk to your electric company, they'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you now. 90% of all heating and cooling lost or gained in a house is lost and gained through your windows and doors. 90% of all heating and cooling lost or gained. It doesn't matter if you had the best insulating walls in the world. It doesn't matter if you have the best insulating attic in the world. 90% of all heating and cooling lost or gained is still lost and gained through your windows and doors. At the same time, too, if you were to measure up the average person's house and you measure their windows and doors together and you compare those measurements to the outer walls only of their home, it is safe to assume that the average person, their windows and doors make up 35% of the outer walls of their home. That's a big number. That's a big number. So if this was one great big giant wall with no window and I were to knock a hole in 35% of this, if that was your house, would you fix it? Well, of course you would, for the obvious reason. And that's the same problem that every customer has that has inferior windows. The only thing inferior windows are good for, the only thing they're good for is they keep out the freaking birds. That's it. Dirt, dust, heat, cold, little insects, crap like that. It doesn't keep any of that stuff out, but it does keep out the birds. I will admit that. I don't know about pterodactyls or anything, but most birds it'll keep out. All right. So windows is a big thing, and we've got to make that a big thing because the average person doesn't sit there and know that. Windows are not sexy. Kitchen bathrooms, those are sexy. Because kitchens and bathrooms you look at. Windows you look through. Nobody pays attention to a window until something's wrong. So this is the reason why we have to use their answers to make out mountains out of their molehills to get them to understand how big of a problem they really have. Does that make sense? Am I going too fast for anybody right now? Okay. let's go ahead and do this real quick, guys. This is a lot that we've covered so far, and you guys have been listening to me chatter like a chipmunk for a minute now. Let's take 10 minutes real fast. I have 10:51. So let's go ahead and jump on this at 11:01. Just so you know, MSPs, all of my MSPs that are on this call, we're going to have a hard stop at 11:45 my time because we have the national leadership call. That is not a call that I have the ability to get us off of. So that call is at 15 minutes at the top of the hour. Okay.
Terry, I think they rescheduled that though.
Well, if they did it, they didn't do that as I saw it earlier. Do you have that on there?
Yeah, Matt said something else, said we're canceling today's monthly MSP sales leadership call. Several meetings, several markets have meetings planned, so he's gonna reschedule it for later this week.
Got it. Then that works there. So cool. Then we don't have to worry about it. So let's take our 10 minutes, guys, and we'll go ahead and start this up here in a few minutes.
Leave your thingy on.
Yeah,
I am-
don't mess
I
around
am-
this time.
I am literally going to put my shit down and not do what I did the last time. I'm going to do
There
that
you go.
right now. Thanks. See you guys in 9 more minutes. Later, Gators.
And
I think Brian probably 11:30.
is our Billy and Anna coming?
Billy, I don't know if he's back.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Is that okay? We sent her an offer and she doesn't even respond. Like she texted me to be like, hey, just wanted to see an update on the job offer. And I was like, well, Brian, that was the final call for Junior Partners. Here's his info, reach out to him. Then I talked with him, it was the same day. And he was like, what do you think? And I was like, I'll probably hire her. She said she knows 3 other people. She doesn't cut her. So he's like, okay. And I was like, that's the whole thing. You can bring in some people. I mean, look at like Jose. Jose was never good. Jose was never great, but he brought in Rico, and Rico was better. Rico also wasn't great, but he was better than Jose. So I was like, you never know what can come. So we sent her an offer, and she after she just asked for an update earlier in the day. I'm like, I don't know.
Or 5.
Yeah, I think he did hire another one. Zach, I think is his name. Maybe one more addition to that as well.
That's good. I'm still tired.
Should be good. I mean, the other thing too is we were talking about, I'm like, well, we don't necessarily want like 16 JSPs to start at the beginning of January when we're all doing all of this shit. And I was like, that's gonna be a fucking nightmare. I was like, we need to ramp up into it, So the goal is to like have his team fully built out by like.
But he could still
Second
hire
February.
16 and just be like, your start date is
Yeah.
on January 20th.
Yeah.
Or something.
If they're great, we'll figure it out. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're great and he hires them, we'll train them.
Like, we'll
figure
figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll-
I was gonna say, it's a great call.
Yeah, I don't mind having kind of like that kind of thing.
We're making money and everything.
Yeah.
We'll make it.
Sure. Study this and.
Right? That'd be fun.
That's fine with me. That's a lot better than just sitting around.
Feels like my.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So this is cool. So this is the schedule basically.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an overview. And then this one has more of
Did
that.
you put this together?
No, Jerry.
Oh, that's really well done.
It is good. Well, I don't know that he did it because when he first, when he first sent this to me, it said.
We're going Tuesday, Wednesday.
And then he was talking about something else that he had as the tool. Or no, there was a Hell logo on it. And so James basically our big logo. She looked at that.
It'll be
That was
8:30.
that was they set it logo.
Oh my god.
So it was like they just kept using the same document and like posting.
So this is just like, I mean, it's really good, but it's like this is the same thing they've been doing for like 20 years,
It's basically what Terry's done at all the companies he's done.
and it's still.
He didn't invent this approach. He said it was another guy. We
Still.
find it. But that's something he's like, I've done so much testing on it, and been like, maybe we don't need to do that. Let's try it this way. Let's do it that way. Let's try it faster. Let's cut this and cut that. And so it's over everything. The further he gets off of these 10 steps, everything, close ratios, all of it goes down. The most success he has is when he's period as opposed to cost of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the window business doesn't really change much. You know, it's
Pretty
That's
good
cool.
to say.
Yeah.
You know, the demeanor for homeowners, but I still think all of this.
We do.
Right.
We're also running on higher. What? Right. We were talking about the shape of rights.
What?
We're unionizing.
We're unionizing right now.
All fire.
And then you. No, we're just discussing it, the commission breakdown and all that stuff. That's the official.
Well, I think they're rewriting it up, but they probably want to wait a little bit to make sure that there's no changes that they want to change that for other markets. So right now it is official. Junior partner commission comes up first. Advanced manager gets 35%, senior partner takes the rest. But you can still self-generate anything you want to and keep it. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's on the contract or not. Like, if you don't want to do it, then I can.
Well, like you said, it was just private.
I didn't say that.
No,
It's definitely not round the ball at all.
No.
It's very well, what it was more saying is like, they make that
That's what I was
That's
saying.
not-
I was like, the option of bringing a dedicated senior, however, it would immediately make them feel like an outsider. Oh, yeah, that's the other juniors, I think, and the reality of it is, like, you know, anybody in the room, if you're not doing a lot of ongoing training, then you bring up a junior. Now, you are training them when you haven't been training juniors or not before, right? Versus having dedicated canvas managers, job it is to train them.
Like I would have to
curious
teach
about
myself
how-
how to teach.
If there's a structure of the knocking and area by area, it's all itemized, listed out, having a separate juniors, just how they're freestyle, whatever. That's another structure, right?
And
So
then
it's not.
there's no camaraderie, there's no competition, they feel like they're isolated.
Honestly,
that's
I
like,
don't think
I
there's
don't-
any benefit to doing that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, having had strong and weak juniors on my team, regardless, if it's a strong junior, they still suck a lot of time. Like Spencer's a good example. He sucked for the first month, then he was good for 2 months, and then he got promoted. Like, he was only my junior for like 3.5 or 4 months. It was super fast. Because he even said, he's like, I have no choice. I have 6 months from the time I started being a senior partner. And I told him that, you know, kept him updated about it, so. But then, and then there's Jose, who was here for, you know, a year and a half and nonstop work and never affected. So, I think just taking
You would have
all of
made
that
that
off. Literally, I figured out working 20 hours a week. The problem was, but I think you're that. You know, focus, having to deal with the new hire, interview, you know, train them, manage the emotion, all that kind of stuff. Being off your guys' plate is huge for them. Yeah, you guys can just focus more on doing things like joining networking groups to generate appointments, you know, working in referrals, visiting installs, working those.
Like some of you guys are in history class.
I already put them
I do, but I don't think I can still make it.
Yeah, no, I put them in.
Here's the other.
It's same, but it's all like.
Yeah, I think all the networking groups allow you to put in like a leave of absence. I know that legit, they'll do it for a month, that's in the bylaws, so it's not like a by chapter policy.
Yeah, doing some hamstringers.
Okay, are we ready to go, guys and gals?
I can see that shit you're showing to me, so that.
What's that?
See what?
That, the thing you're doing.
Well, I think it's interesting is that everybody all spoke up.
Cool. We have everybody back everybody? Is everyone back?
Who's in the back?
Except for Cody. Go on without him, Cody's in ahead.
Cody's easy to find, his tall, lanky ass.
Yep.
For me, I'm standing up on this stool, but when I get down, you know. So, y'all didn't know I had to step up to be tall, sit down to be small stool, did you? Okay, is everybody back? We ready to get back into it?
Yep.
All right, so some things I want to cover real quick is if you guys will look at your sheet, some of the things that we want to watch out for, okay? Again, corners of the windows, especially aluminum windows. Let's make sure that the windows lock, open, and close properly. One of the things that I've always been a big fan of is when you get these aluminum double pane or single pane windows, especially aluminum single pane. Obviously, we don't want to do this on the real big windows, but you know, some of these windows that are 60 inches wide, 48 inches tall, or 36 inches tall, or 48 by 48, inch sliders. Take the sliding window, slide it open, lift it up, and pull the window out, guys. Pull it out. Okay. It certainly isn't going to be anywhere near weight-wise what our kits are. I mean, hell, our window sample is heavy as hell. This is not even going to be a third of that. But let's pull that out. By pulling it out, we can see if there's 90-degree interlocking rails there or not. We can see if the weather stripping is bad or not. We can see if there's any dents in it, at the sliding part. And at the same time, too, by taking that window when we take it out, flip it upside down, you'll also be able to see the closing mechanisms in it. Do they have wheels? And if so, what kind of wheels? Typically, aluminum windows don't have wheels at all unless they're double pane. Most of them have gliders on them, these little plastic gliders, where it slides back and forth, or it's aluminum on top of aluminum sliding back and forth. So on these anodized aluminum windows, I would pull out a little piece of white cloth. Typically, I used to carry them that were about this big. And I would take my white cloth and I'd wipe inside the track and pick it up and say, look, this is dirt and dust, but all this black stuff you see here, that's the aluminum window deteriorating as you slide it back and forth. Put that back in, close the window, unlock it, and then kind of push on the window and see if that window rattles or not. Okay. Again, things that we want to show a customer, because most customers don't pay attention to that. Again, people look through windows. They don't look at windows. Our job is to point things out so they're now starting to look at them and not look through them. Okay. So check to see if the windows are out of square. A lot of times on a sliding window, especially, you lock and close it, and where the sash meets into the rail like this, you can look at that a lot of times and you can see if the damn thing is out of square. Okay. Again, out of square causes dirt and dust infiltration. Okay. So that's another thing to look at when you're inspecting. Do they line up properly? Pull the sliders out. On sliders, see what type of mechanisms that they have. Same thing on single hung windows. What kind of mechanism do they have that operates? Are they self-lubricating spiral springs? Are they block and tackle pulley system? Or if it's a wood window, is it the lead counterweights with the cotton ropes? Then we can talk about how that's an inferior mechanism and the challenges that come from that. Okay. This is what we want to do when we want to inspect. We have to make mountains out of molehills. We have to. Again, an aluminum window, double pane or not. Aluminum is highly conductive of heat and cold. So let's start feeling that stuff. Okay. Let's see if we can feel the cold coming through or the heat coming through, things like that, depending on the time of the year. Okay. Do the windows have a 90-degree interlocking rail or not? Are they single versus double pane? Are there signs of condensation in between the insulated glass units? Or a lot of these single pane aluminum windows, especially in the lower right-hand corner, the lower left-hand corner, these things tend to condensate. Condensation runs down. It sits on this painted drywall. And a lot of times you can see where the water the paint and the drywall absorb that moisture. So what are problems with that other than the fact that it absorbs moisture? Well, if you think about this, what about mold and mildew? Where does mold and mildew grow? Mold and mildew grows in dark, wet places. So when this paint takes in that moisture and that gets underneath the paint where it's dark and it's wet, mold starts to grow. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. A lot of times that mold, it's kind of like plants and grass and shit like that. As the sun moves across the sky, blades of grass and everything follow the sun. Mold and mildew is the same way. Mold and mildew follows the dark, wet spot. So when this moisture gets inside of that paint, that mold and mildew wants to go down into the walls because that's where it's dark at. So it chases the dark. Sometimes these houses that are musty smelling, a lot of times that's going to be mold and mildew that's growing inside the walls. So we want to talk about that. Okay. It makes sense. If you were looking for mold and mildew in your house, where would you look? Bathrooms and underneath sinks, whether it be kitchen sinks or bathroom sinks, that's where your mold and mildew is normally going to go ahead and grow. You know, in your bathroom, because you take a shower, things get wet, you shut the lights off, becomes a giant petri dish, mold and mildew starts to grow on that. Most everybody on this phone call has had to clean mold and mildew off of their tub at some point in time. Okay, well, that's the reason why. So these are the things that we're looking for when we're inspecting, but more importantly, we want to use the customer's answers that they gave us earlier when we ask the question, when you take your old windows out and put your new windows in, what exactly do you want your new windows to do for you, and be specific? Now we use those answers while we're inspecting to point out what they're saying. Ah, I could see why energy efficiency. I could see why dirt and dust. I could see why, and I could hear the noise. I see why you would say that. I'm surprised you didn't talk about security though. These are single pane windows, cheesy ass locks, blah, 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 blah. All right. When you're inspecting, there's two things that we have to make sure that we do though. Number one, after you inspect one or two windows, 2 or 3 windows, somewhere around there, you have to make sure you let the customer know that this is not their fault. It's not their fault. Mr. and Mrs. Customer, as we're inspecting these windows, just keep something in mind. This is not your fault. This is what came with the house, and you didn't know any better. This is not your fault, so I'm not picking on you. Okay? You must tell them that, because there are some people that are going to get all jawed up because they think you're beating up on their house when you're inspecting. So you have to make sure you let them know that you're not trying to pick on them. It just is what it is. Okay? The second thing,
They
do what?
support it.
Say that again.
I said, we used to always use that line on the doors, like you probably have some need and then you'd be like, oh, I'm not saying all that to pick on you. It's just what we look for. And I hated that line because it kind of undermined what you said. And I was like, sweet, now we actually get to use it and it makes sense.
Right. So we want to make sure we're doing that. The other thing that we want to do is, as you're inspecting the windows, especially the front of the house, maybe you inspect again 2, maybe 3 or 4, something like that, depending on what's in front of the house. This is typically what I would do. This is where, if you'll read here where it says the plant the seed question, okay? After you've inspected a couple windows, this is what I usually do. If here's the window, I usually inspect and then I'll stop and I'll do this. And I look outside and I look down the street. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Blaylock. Do you think if we were to put windows in your home someday, obviously it's not going to be today, but someday, do you think we can get more work in the neighborhood? What do you think?
Mr.
And let's get them.
Yeah. So everyone
Do what?
follows.
Do what, sir?
I said, yeah, I think so. I'm kind of the trendsetter in the neighborhood. I did a roof and then everybody else did a roof. I did solar, everyone did solar.
Okay, why else do you think they would do it other than the fact that you're the trendsetter? I mean, what I'm trying to say, I guess, is this. You can't be the only ones having problems with your windows, right?
Oh no, this whole neighborhood was built by a builder about 24 years ago. They've all got the exact same windows installed by the same people. They got to have the same problems I do.
Okay, sir. I was just wondering, and leave it at that. That's it. All we're trying to do is plant a seed right now. Because later on in our close, we're going to bring that up later, which is part of the reason why we offer the different type of pricing that we offer, right? Part of the reason why we do a promotional advertising is because we don't advertise TV, newspaper, or radio. What we do is look for folks like yourself that we can partner with, that we can go ahead and spread our business throughout the neighborhood because of nice folks like yourself. We're not giving you this price because it's a cheap price. What we're doing is we're investing in your home to be a human billboard for us to be able to sit there and continue to grow our business. We're not doing this because you're a nice guy or a nice lady or a nice couple. We're doing this because this is our way of how we invest our advertising dollars is in people like yourselves when we partner with you to be able to push our agenda. Okay. That is what we want to tell somebody when we're giving them a price and this quote unquote good price. We're not doing it because we're a bunch of good dudes. Fuck that. We're doing this because we're going to use them to push our product, and they need to understand that's why they're getting this price, and that's why it's only good for today. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So that's what we want to make sure that we're doing. So we inspect, we look for all those things, we use their answers. We're going to then, again, let them know that we're not picking on them, but at the same time, if we were to do windows in your neighborhood, in your house here someday, I mean, someday, I know it's not going to be today, but someday, you think we can get more work in the neighborhood? What do you think? Now, from time to time, you're going to get that customer that's going to say, well, I don't know. I don't talk to anybody in my neighborhood. I hate everybody and everybody sucks and I don't like nobody. Okay, I get that. Well, then clearly, sir, you're not the most popular person in the neighborhood. That's for sure. But let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this. Clearly, you can't be the only person having problems with your windows, right? Well, no. Chances are, I mean, you can't be that unlucky. Nobody's that unlucky, you know? What we also know is that business breeds business. So it would be safe to assume we get more work in the neighborhood, right? They'll say yes every single time to that. Every time. They'll say yes every single time. So by asking that question, there's no way to get out of it, that a customer can get out of it. The only time you're going to have a hard time answering that question is if you happen to be at a house that is on acreage and the nearest neighbor is 200 yards down the street, or their house is, 300 yards off the street, then that's going to be a little bit of a problem there, and that'll change things up. Okay. But past that, though, there's really no way for a customer to get out of this no matter what answer you give, no matter what they try to tell you. We just may have to lead them down, we may have to lead them to the water and give them the drink, that's all. Okay. So again, customer says, I'm not sure, I'm new to the neighborhood, I don't know anybody, and besides, I hate all people, so I don't even talk to my neighbors. Well, that's awesome, sir, I get it. I mean, obviously you're not on everybody's Christmas list, I'll give you that. But let me ask you this, though. Clearly you don't think you're the only person having problems with your windows, do you? Nobody's that unlucky, right? Business breeds business, right? A crowd breeds a crowd. So it'd be safe to assume we can get more work in the neighborhood, don't you think? They'll say yes every time, guys. Every time. They'll say yes every time. Okay. So we want to make sure that we ask that. As we go through this presentation, you guys start to see different things. What you're going to find out is there isn't a single question that we ask that we are not going to use some way, somehow later down the road. Okay, there's always a reason why we do something. Nothing is just out of happenstance. There's always a reason for it. Okay. If you're not sure of the reason on certain things, then make sure that as we go through this, we want to make sure that we ask. All right. Make sure that we ask, hey, look, shorty, why are we doing shit like that? What's the deal behind that? Not a problem. I'll be more than happy to answer it. Okay. So we've inspected all of our windows. It is now time to ask our closing question. The closing question is a 3-part question. Okay. So typically, before you ask a closing question, you always want to ask the customer, do you have any questions for me? This way, if there's anything that they're thinking, hopefully they'll speak up. You'll also find by asking that and following up with, so do you have any, we've got all your windows inspected, so hypothetically it'll work this way. We got all the windows inspected, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Blaylock, we've inspected all of your windows. Before I say anything, let me ask you, do you have any questions for me? No. Cool. Then I've got a couple questions for you. Number one, based on what we've seen so far, obviously replacing your windows is something you're going to do someday, correct? I mean, I know it's not going to be today, but someday. Is that correct? I need a yes answer here. Any other answer other than yes is bullshit. We cannot accept that. We cannot accept that. If they sit there and say, yeah, you know what? I can see why you would say that. Yeah, for sure. That is an agreement. That is not a commitment. Yes is a commitment. Everything else is an agreement. I need a commitment here. That's what we need. So based on what we've seen so far, obviously replacing your windows is something you're going to do someday. I mean, I know it's not going to be today, Mr. Blaylock, but someday. Would you agree with that? Yes. At the same time, would you also agree that the condition the windows are in fact costing you money on a daily basis? Would you agree with that? Yes. We have to get a yes here. So doing something sooner rather than later, if possible, would be the better way to go. Would you agree with that? Yes, if possible, but yes. Fantastic. Now we can move forward. If we're not getting a yes here, you damn well better sit there and keep digging a little bit, or there's not a deal here, just so you know. You've got to get commitments here. That's why they're called closing questions. Now, from time to time, I would imagine if I was pitching Jimmy's John's at his house, if I was at Jimmy's John's place, and I asked Jimmy's John's a question like that, because Jimmy's John's used to sit there and is a sales rep, chances are he doesn't want to answer that question because he knows what I'm trying to do. Chances are his response would be, well, you know what, Mr. Tiny, short window salesperson guy, I know what you're trying to do here, buddy. I'm a salesman too, and I know what you're trying to do. I know what you're trying to do. Most everybody here who has sold anything before, especially in-home selling, has run across that where somebody told you that. The easiest way to respond to that is very simple. So you're a salesman too, you said, Mr. Johns, you are? Yeah, I am. Well, then you know how this works, sir. You know how it works. Sir, if you can't answer yes to this question, then there's no need for me to proceed and go any farther, sir. Because if you don't believe that you have a problem, sir, you're certainly not going to replace your windows because you don't believe you have a problem. So you know how this works. Either you answer yes to this, sir, or you don't. But if you don't, so I might as well just pack it up and walk out, because you're not going to replace something if you feel you don't need it. Or am I wrong? Do you typically do things that you normally don't need?
No.
They'll have to answer, guys, just so you know. They'll have to answer. It's no different than when you ask about the window. We're going to ask a closing question about the window. Is this the window you want to put on your home over all others? Hey, look, man, I know what you're trying to do here. I'm a salesman too, boss, and you're not going to get me to commit to that. Awesome, sir. So you're a salesman, you said. Yes, I am. Then you know how this works, partner. If you can't see this window on your home over all others, then brother, why would I need to proceed and go any farther and give you a price? If this is not the window you want to put on your home, then it doesn't matter what price I give you. You're not the type of person I would assume that's going to put something cheesy on their home or something they don't like just for the sake of price. You're not that kind of a human being, are you?
Hey, Terry. Another one I'd love to hear your word track on too is when they say, we're moving in a year, we're probably just gonna leave it off the next homeowner.
That's a good one too. So again, somebody sits there and tells me that I have to ask the question. Well, sir, ma'am, I got to ask you a question. Number one, then, if that was the case and you knew that before the appointment was set or this meeting was set, I got to ask the question. Then why would you want somebody to come out, and why would you be looking into pricing for windows? Just out of curiosity, why is that?
I was just thinking about it. I don't know, your guy knocked on the door. I've never had a window inspection before.
Okay. Have you ever sold a house before?
Yeah, this is my second home.
Okay. Typically, when you go to sell a house, at times it could take a little bit before a house gets sold. Would you agree with that?
Sometimes, yeah, depends on the
Okay.
market.
Okay. One of the advantages of replacing your windows, folks, is this, the one thing that we can sit there and say is that we live in a country now that's a lot more energy efficient than it used to be. The average person now is a lot more energy conscious today than they used to be. For example, if you were to take two houses that are side by side, everything's exactly the same all the way down to the blade of grass in the front yard and the cobweb that's in the kitchen. One house has more energy efficient windows with a transferable lifetime warranty, and the other one does not. Would it be safe to assume that the house with more energy efficient windows and a transferable lifetime warranty would be easier to sell, and you can sell for a little more money than the house that doesn't? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that's why I had you out. I'm just not sure if I want to do it or not.
Okay, so what we have to figure out now then is how it makes sense for us to be able to do this. So as we go through this, we're going to try to go ahead and answer those questions. And in the end, maybe we're going to be able to sit there and come up with a yes answer, and maybe we're not. But the part that we have to do is figure out what is best for us, right?
Right.
Okay, so then I'll go back to ask you the same question again then, okay? Obviously, then if it makes sense, putting a more energy efficient window and door on the home is the better way for us to go if it makes sense. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, depending on the cost.
Right. Cost aside, though, obviously price is always going to figure into everything. But leaving price out of it for a minute, if it makes sense just from the energy standpoint and the reselling value and all that, that's the part we got to figure out for a second before we move to price, right?
Right.
Okay, well, you can keep trying to do this shit here, lady, but you get ready to buy Windows, goddamn. So
Touche.
again, what we have to do, and it's a good question, Miss Michelle, it's a good question, okay? Again, you're the typical customer that says, well, it comes down to price. Well, we're not talking about price right now. So you got to get them off of price for right now. Obviously price matters, and we're going to go ahead and cover that in the future. But leaving price out of it for a minute, does it not make sense to do this and this and this? If it makes sense, would you agree with that? Yes, I do. Okay, we'll cover the price in a minute. I'm just not there yet. What we can't let them do is muddy up the water. So we handle the part that we're handling now, push off the price later if that customer brings it up. We don't ignore it, just push it off. Obviously, price will matter, and we're going to go ahead and cover that at some point in time. But getting price out of it for a minute, the part we got to figure out first is this, and if it makes sense, and of course, if the price is right, then we want to go ahead and see if we should move forward. But right now, we need to see, does this part make sense, though? Yes, this part makes sense. Cool, let's move forward. Does that make sense to everybody here?
Yep.
Okay, so again, we handle what's going on, Tall Matt.
If we can backtrack a little to the inspection, so once you've inspected a couple windows, you're letting them know it's not their fault, they're not picking on you. We've had this a couple times. I'm just curious your word track, where if they're like, yeah, my house was built in the 70s, these windows are super old, I know they have issues. Why am I doing this? Why am I going with you to all these windows? Do I have to finish this? Like the customer's kind of like, yeah, I know my windows are terrible. What's the point of this? What would be your kind of word track there?
You know what, Matt, that's a great question, first off. Number two, as a customer, yo, James Harden, is that a beer? Because if it's a beer, I'm going to be very unhappy that I don't have one, bro.
It's a tea. It's a tea.
Whatever.
Okay.
It's a
beer with a tea bag in it. Nice cover, guys. Well played.
when you're elderly and your eyes don't work so well, I didn't see the tea bag thing. So of course it could be, what's that stuff they call it? What's the tea thing? The alcohol tea. What do they call that? Twisted tea or whatever. It could be that. It could be that. Okay, so good question, Matt. So let's answer that. So you're telling me as the customer, if I get this right, that, hey, look, I know my windows are shitty, bro. I get it. That's why you're here, dude. So why do we got to keep inspecting? Right? You know what, Matt, great question, sir, as to why you're asking that. Look, sir, you live here, so you know the challenges that you have. Keep in mind, though, sir, I don't live here. The inspection isn't necessarily for you as it is for me. I have to be able to get an idea of what I'm dealing with. Sometimes what I see on this window over here, a problem is going on with something over here that I can't actually see. It's kind of like this, sir. You go to the doctor, right? And you got a broken arm and you got the bone sticking out of your arm. It's weird, but when you walk into the emergency room, doc always asks the same question. So what seems to be the problem today? Dude, the fucking bone is sticking out, bro. Check it out. First thing they're going to go ahead and do is they're going to check your eyes, your ears, your nose, your throat, your blood pressure, your weight. I have no idea what the hell that has to do with this, but that's what they do. So that's the analogy we want to give the customer is in order for us to go ahead and properly assess your home and give you a price to the penny, what we're going to need to do is inspect everything so I can get an idea of what I'm dealing with. I then know how to go ahead and give you this price for a penny. Unlike other companies that give you estimates, we don't. We're going to give you a price to the very nickel, sir. And it's not going to be a nickel more or a penny less, unless we happen to sit there and partner with one another and we open up your wall and we find out you got a family of alligators in your wall that we're going to have to fight off, in which case then we're going to have to readjust that price for fighting alligators, right? So that's the reason why we're going through this. It isn't so much for you, sir, as it is for me. But at the same time, too, as I told you earlier, how am I supposed to offer some temporary solutions for you, sir, that you can use if I don't actually know what's going on myself? Does that make sense, sir? That'll get you out of any of those problems, Matt. That'll get you out. Okay? That'll get you out. Okay. Was that a sufficient answer for everybody? Or does somebody disagree, or you want to add to it or take away from it? You guys tell me.
No, that was perfect.
Very good.
Oh, in line a couple times too, where people were trying to bail out from going around when I was doing the measurements and stuff, was that I don't feel comfortable walking around their house by myself.
Yeah, I
It just feels awkward. And I was just like, I totally get that. Truthfully, from my perspective, wandering around, we just met, you guys just didn't know me an hour ago. It just makes me feel uncomfortable just wandering through your house into your closets and rooms and opening up every door to check for windows. And so that usually worked really good.
You could blame it on a liability issue as well, that it's company policy that we have a homeowner present with us for liability reasons.
There is. I mean, on something like that, when somebody tells me, look, I don't want to go with you, just go ahead and walk around. I literally say almost what Cody says. The only difference is I always add to it. Hey, look, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I appreciate that you would trust me enough to let me walk around your home. But the bottom line is, folks, I seriously don't feel comfortable with that. Not only that, if some naked man were to jump out of a closet somewhere, I'm going to need to be able to push you in front of him so I can get out of here. So, folks, seriously, I need you to walk around here with me, man. That's what I mean. And that's literally what I say. I've got Phil in here right now. He's heard me say it. And Shadow was with me in a house once. I think after what Shadow heard in there, Shadow, you would probably admit I would probably say that.
100%.
So that's usually what I say. But basically along the lines of what Cody is saying, I tend to sit there and leave the company policy business stuff out. But you could say it, though, due to liability and things like that. You could do that, But I just don't want to get somebody to get into the conversation. So, well, don't worry about it. I'm not going to sue you anyway type of bullshit. But, you could say that too. I mean, it'll work also. But that's usually what I say, guys. So getting back into the closing question, we have got to ask and the closing questions, and we have got to get yes answers here. Look at it this way, and it's so weird because I've never been able to figure this out. I have been doing this for a long, long, long time, a long time. And here's a part that's always weirded me out that I've never been able to figure out. When you don't ask a closing question where you're supposed to, I look at these closing questions in the 10 steps as a hallway with 10 doors. And I've got to lock and close each door as I go down the hallway. Because if a customer gets into one of those rooms, we're never going to be able to get them out. And the ironic thing about it is when you don't do a certain thing, then that's the closet the customer is going to jump in every time. It is uncanny. I can't figure out why that works that way. But that's exactly what happens. So we've got to be able to lock and close these doors because we don't need that customer ducking into that room, and then we're never going to be able to get them out. Okay. So not only that, again, selling is easier when it's their idea. Now, when a customer says, well, let me think about this. Well, earlier, folks, you said that the windows were costing you money on a daily basis, and doing something sooner rather than later is a better way to go. Why would you want to continue to keep losing money every day, as you said you were? What exactly are we thinking about? Or is what you're trying to tell me is this was just more money than you were prepared to spend? Which one is it? Okay. We can now use those answers that we're getting from them when we ask these closing questions, and then we hold them to those answers. Now, if you're not going to hold them to the answers, then you might as well not ask the damn question. But past that, we ask them because we're going to hold it to them later. We're going to hold them to it later. Okay. So up until the closing questions through step number 3, anybody have any questions at all? Anything that you want us to go back on? Anything like that? Anybody?
I have a question. I'm just trying to get some examples about the temporary solutions. Like, are we literally just telling them to put a towel on the windowsill when it rains if it's leaking in, like that kind of stuff?
Well, temporary solutions can be several things. I mean, if it's a window, for example, that gets in a lot of sunlight for right now, a lot of heat, putting foil on it, putting plastic on it in the wintertime, putting a towel, whatever. I'm going to tell you this right now, 99.99% of every human you talk to, when you tell them that, the temporary solution thing, not a single soul is going to ask you, what solution do you have for me? In 37 years of doing this, 37, I've had maybe 3 that ask, maybe 3. Other than that, they don't ask. They just don't. They don't ask. They don't remember. Because they really don't give a shit, to be honest with you. They just don't care. The people that care are going to buy. The ones that don't, either we're going to be too expensive, they can't afford it, or they just don't give a hoot because it's always been this way and they're going to be okay with it. And they're not going to give a hoot. But for the most part, Miss Michelle, nobody will question that for you. They just won't. Very cool. Do what? Okay. So the next thing up is going to be CPA. Okay. CPA stands for company, product, and affordability. Okay. I'm going to need one person on this phone call, preferably somebody that has not done this drill with me before, to be on this, to go ahead and play this out. Okay. So who wants to do it?
I'll do it.
Who's I?
I'll do it.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me ask you, what was your last name, sir?
Jenkins.
Jenkins?
Yep.
Okay, so Mr. Jenkins, let me ask you a question, sir. When you do a project like this, what exactly are you looking for in a company, sir? What are you looking for?
One-stop shop and white glove treatment.
Okay, so you're looking for a company that is one-stop shop. You said white glove?
Yeah, I want to be treated like a white glove. I want to be treated like a king.
Like a king. Okay. What else are you looking for in a company, sir? Because somebody who wants to be treated like a king certainly wants more than these 2 things here.
I want there to be no problems. I want to know everything up front to expect. I want to know that you can be around next year when I need you to call you and say there's a problem.
So basically what you're saying is longevity, correct?
Yeah, longevity, yep.
What else are you looking for, sir?
I don't want the expensive guy, but I also don't want the cheap guy.
Okay, so that wouldn't really be really company. So what you're saying is you want something that's affordable. You don't want the cheapest, but you don't want the most expensive either, right?
Right,
So basically what you're saying is you don't want to be put in the window poorhouse to do this, correct?
right.
What else are you looking for, sir? Is that about it?
That's about it.
Okay, well, one of the things that you did not mention, since you mentioned other things, sir, is what about the product? Do you not give a hoot about the product? It could be any kind of window, or do you, what are you looking for in that?
I've got aluminum now, so obviously I need something that, and I can't buy aluminum anywhere else. No one sells it, so. Yeah, it's important. Have we done a demo yet, or have we just walked around and inspected?
We've just walked around and inspected. We haven't done a demo yet at all.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see your windows. What do they look like? What do you got?
Okay,
You got one?
I can certainly do that. Yep, I certainly do. But right now, sir, what's important is what it is that you're looking for. Because if what you're telling me I don't actually have, sir, we're gonna probably have to end this conversation. So what are you looking for, boss?
I want exactly what I have. So I want sliders. I want white on white. I had the renewal guys out. They had a composite. I had the pellet guy out. He had a fiberglass. I understand you got a vinyl, so I'd like to see a vinyl too.
So you're looking for better quality is what you're saying than you currently have.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything else, or is that about do it?
That's good. Like we said earlier, I definitely want energy efficiency. I want something that's going to be energy efficient. So,
Okay, so let me see if I get this right then, sir. What you're saying is you're looking for a company that's a one-stop shop type of company that gives you white glove service because you want to be treated like a king, right? At the same time, too, you want there to be no problems. You want everything to be upfront, so there's, you know, nothing hiding in the weeds. And at the same time, a company that's going to be around for a while, correct?
right.
From there, you want to make sure that the product they're putting out is not the cheapest, but it's not the most expensive, because the product you get, you don't want to end up in the window poorhouse. And that affordable product needs to sit there and be sliders, which is what you've got, white on white, better quality than what you currently have, and at the same time, more energy efficient. Is that correct?
Yeah, that hit it.
Okay,
Sounds good.
so let me ask you this then. Would it be safe to assume then, sir, that once you find all this in a company, that your shopping would then be over?
Well, you know, I got another guy coming tomorrow, so I don't want to say I'm over today, but you know, I got
Right.
someone else coming tomorrow too.
So let's put it to you in a different way, sir. Regardless of who you go with, they have to have all these bullet points. For example, if the product is going to be the cheapest and they're not been around for a long time, you're not going to do business with them, are you?
No,
So it is safe to assume once you find all of this in a company, your shopping is then over, correct? You have to
Yeah.
say yes.
no,
That's your CPA, guys. That's the way the CPA works. The CPA is company product affordability. Again, what we're trying to do here is this would be what I would call a second hot button question. Okay. We're getting ready to get into the company part of our presentation, but I need to know, and you need to know what that customer is expecting and looking for in a company. Not for us to stand there and tell us how cool a company we are and why we're cool. Because if we're hitting on bullet points, it doesn't matter to him, then those bullet points don't mean shit. Okay. So at this point in time, your CPA pulls out what it is that they're looking for, which is funny because when they start getting on product, you're going to find that 80% of the answers are different than the answers they gave you when you asked the question. when you take your old windows out, put your new windows in, what do you want your new windows to do for you? The answers are going to be different. So we've got to get the customer to tell us how to close them, which is what this is. And at the same time, get the commitment that once they find all this in the company, their shopping would then be over. So now when he sat there and he said yes, like he did, now what I would then turn around and do is, okay, well, speaking of company, are you familiar with Apex Energy Solutions? Chances are his answer is going to be no, I'm not. Great. Let me tell you a little about who we are. Then I'm going to make sure that as we go through the company portion, I'm going to make sure that I catch each one of his bullet points. Okay. I got to make sure I catch his bullet points and then add whatever else I can add to it. But the important part is what's important to the customer is these. This is the reason why right here shopping comes up in everybody's clothes. Because we don't cover all the bullet points that's important to them. We're too busy, and most companies are too busy telling everybody how great we are and what an awesome company we are. But what we're not doing is we're not catering to what's important to the customer. Because what's important to Mr. Jenkins here is not going to be what's important to James Harden over there in Dallas, which is not going to be the same as Kate out in Seattle, which is not going to be the same as Cam out in Portland. Okay? So we've got to get from the customer what's important. Your CPA is designed to do that. The CPA is designed for them to tell us what we need to be talking about, and then we'll add what we need to add to make us be better than what we are. If that's the right way to put that. I don't know if that sounded retarded to say that. So that's what we want to make sure that we're doing. And that's typically how it works. CPA is company product affordability. It's not always going to come up in that order. It doesn't matter. So you might ask a customer, let me ask you a question. When you do a project like this, what exactly are you looking for in a company? They may sit there and say, well, I'm looking for a company with a good warranty. Good warranty. That's not really describing the company. What you're saying, I think, is you want a product with a good warranty. So what you would do is you would write product and then put good warranty underneath that. And what you'll find is they'll start naming everything that's got to do with product. Yeah, energy efficient, high in quality, blah, blah, blah. What else are you looking for in a company? Well, I want a company that's been around a long time. Okay, so longevity. Usually the hardest answer to get is affordability. That's usually the hardest one. Most people say that's about it. If they haven't given you the affordability, then we just have to pull it out of them. All right, well, this is it. Yes, that's it. Okay, so Mr. Customer, I noticed that when I walked up to your house and as we were inspecting the windows, I didn't see any money trees growing in the backyard or anything like that. Do we not care about money, or, I mean, does it not matter to you? You tell me. Oh, no, of course. Okay, so what you're saying is you want something that's affordable, something that's not going to put you in the window poorhouse, blah, 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 blah. Get their answers. Does that about cover it? Yes, it does. Cool. Then read it in order the way they gave it to you. So what you're saying is you're looking for a company that's a one-stop shop, white glove service because you want to be treated like a king, no problems, upfront, longevity. At the same time, they put out an affordable product because you don't want the cheapest, but you don't want the most expensive. And you definitely don't want anything that's going to put you in the window poorhouse. And at the same time, that product is not going to put you in the window poorhouse. Has to be sliders, white on white, better quality, and more energy efficient. Does that about sum it up? Yes, it does. Great. Would it be safe to assume then that once you find all this in the company that your shopping would then be over? Would it be safe to assume that? They're either going to tell you yes, 99 times out of 100, or they're going to do exactly with what Mr. Jenkins did right now and say, well, I don't know. You're the first pilgrims I've ever talked to. I've got 4 other companies showing up. That's awesome. So let's get that part out of the way. Regardless of who you choose to go with, it doesn't even matter. If they don't have all these bullet points, in other words, if all they've got is the cheapest window and they haven't been around for a long time, you're not going to do business with them, are you? You'll get no every single time, just like Mr. Jenkins did. Every single time they'll say no. Every time. Then you jump on that. No, I wouldn't do it. So Once you find all this in the company, then it is safe to assume your shopping is then over, then is what you're saying. You'll get a yes answer 100 out of 100 times. Even though Mr. Jenkins was trying to find a way to not say yes to that. He still did. 100 out of 100 times it'll work that way. And 1,000 out of 1,000 it'll work the same way. Okay. Now here's what we know. I now know what's important to my customer when it comes to the company. Instead of standing there, sitting there going, you know, at Apex, we're such a great company. We've been around since 1998. We've got a 4.8 Google rating. We're the king of all ding-a-ling when it comes to triple pane windows. We're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Well, except for me. But that being said, though, that's what most companies do. They want to run around telling everybody how great they are. And that's all fine and dandy if greatness is what you're looking for. But the customer doesn't give a shit about great. What the customer cares about is what they care about. So we have to find out what that is so we know how to pitch when we get into the company part of the pitch. Does that make sense or no? Does that make sense? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so CPA, an absolute must. This is one of these things that you cannot leave out. This is also why you have your talking pad, because we're going to put this on the talking pad. I would pull out the pad and I would write this exactly the way they're putting it out. Exactly. Okay, so that is how CPA works. Now, when we ask the question, are you familiar with Apex Energy Solutions? No, I'm not. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Apex. What we're then going to do again is we're going to cover this part as we're explaining the company. And if you'll look in the company part of the presentation, I put some bullet points that we can go ahead and look at. Okay. So the purpose of the company is to sit there and convince John and Mary that Apex Energy Solutions is the company that at the very least they should entrust their home to. Okay. So some things to go ahead and cover. Be sure to answer, you use the answers from the CPA. So as we're going through our bullet points, we gotta make sure we're covering this. We've got to. So we are a company that started in 1998, folks. That means we've been in business for almost 26 years now. We currently have 25 locations and 4 more locations opening up by the end of 2024. At Apex, we're a true blue full service company. You remember earlier, sir, when you said you were looking for a one-stop shop type of company? That's what full service basically means, sir. That's what it means. What that is we research and develop all of our own products. We market all of our own windows. We sell and install all of our own windows. You know, we're going to go through that. But at the same time, you talked about white glove. Well, we have a concierge program. Here's how our concierge program works. At the same time, you sat there and said longevity. Well, sir, we've been in business for 26 years. Now, if Mr. Jenkins here wants to be one of them smart-ass customers and say, yeah, well, Renewable Energy has been around for 120 years. That's awesome, sir, they have. But you know what the funny thing about that is, sir? To get to 120, they had to go through 26 just like we did. And in 140, in 100 years from now, in 94 years from now, we'll also be at 120 as well. But in order to get to 120, you got to get through 26. Okay. So we have been around a long time. Upfront, we are very upfront. This is why we're telling you everything we're telling you now. So we want to make sure that we're covering all these bullet points. At the same time, too, guys and gals, your MSP will go through with you guys. And then other people like Leah out there in Seattle, you got let me see, Jimmy's John's out there in Portland for sure, Shadow out there in Portland for sure, Nicole out there. Some of these places that have veteran reps, these are good people to sit there and talk to also and get an idea of what they would also say in the company presentation. Your company presentation doesn't have to be verbatim what I wrote down here, but it should include all of this in there. Okay. It should include all of it. You know, we factory train all of our people. We ship all of our own products. We're licensed, bonded, and insured for each installation. We measure success one homeowner at a time. It starts with creating a partnership between you and Apex. From there, we use online platforms such as Nextdoor and Google to get the input from our partners like yourself to make the correct changes that we need to make to continuously improve Apex. The bottom line is this is a true blue partnership. Again, in Mr. Jenkins's case, this covers his upfront stuff. This covers the never being left in the dark. Now, the problem thing I would probably address. Now, Mr. Jenkins, obviously, sir, you're working with humanoid type of people, right? So to sit there and say you're not looking for any problems, that would be like me trying to sit there and say I don't want the sun to rise in the east and set in the west anymore, okay? If you'll check our Google rating, we have a 4.8 Google rating nationwide, but it's not a 5. And the reason why it's not a 5, because that's the closest perfection that we currently can get to. So to expect that there will be no problems at all, it's awesome to sit there and expect that and want that. But the reality is there are challenges that may or may not come up. We just hope that they won't with you. Can you accept at least that part for an answer for right now? He'll say yes, because he knows what he's asking for is bullshit. He knows it. He knows it. But he's going to ask anyway because he should. Okay? So this is how we want to handle that when we do our company presentation. All right? From there, I always close my company with the lastly is going to be our lifetime warranty. The last thing about our company, Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins, is our lifetime warranty. We have a true blue lifetime warranty, meaning for as long as you own or remain in your home, if you have any challenges with the product, you pick up the phone, you give us a call, and our warranty will cover it. The only thing we do not cover is fire, floods, act of God, things like that your insurance is normally going to go ahead and cover. Beyond that, our warranty cannot be beat. It can only be matched. That being said, do you have any questions about my company at all as I've explained everything? Is there any questions at all, Mr. Jenkins, that you have? Anything? No? Great. Then I have one for you, sir. Based on the information I've shared with you so far, does Apex Energy Solutions, at the very least, sound like the kind of company you would entrust your home to? What would your answer to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, let's assume Mr. Jenkins throws a curveball. Curveball being, well, I don't know, man. You know, you must be hard of hearing, bro. I already told you twice, you're the first company that's come out here. I don't know. You know what, sir? You did sit there and say that. So let me ask the question in a different manner then. Based on everything I've explained so far, is there anything that I've explained that causes the hair on the back of your neck to stand up? Anything that sits there and makes your spidey senses thinking, oh my God, something's wrong here? Is there anything at all? No, there's not. So if we look at it that way then, because none of the hairs are standing up on the back of your neck and your spidey senses aren't going off, then I would assume then it is safe to assume that at the very least, we would sound like the kind of company you would entrust your home to. Is that correct now? You'll get a yes answer now. He'll give it to you now. Okay, he'll give it to you now. So asking the question, there is no way for a customer to get out. The only way for them to get out is if we don't do it at all, or we're afraid to sit there and push that envelope just a smidge. But nothing that I've said so far should put us in any hot water with any company or customer, or cause the customer to sit there and get weirded out. Okay, so questions about what we have so far? Anything? Let's fire away, guys, because nobody can be this good at training or explaining this shit. That's for sure.
So you're not going through the actual warranty at this point. You're just kind of overviewing it a little bit to satisfy what they're, you know.
So yes, Cody, the answer is yes. So in steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, I don't want to sell. I don't want to sell at all. Okay. The selling is going to start when we get into step number 5. That's where the selling starts. When we start comparing our product to everybody else's, when we start taking the customer true blue shopping, now we're going to start selling. That's when we're going to start talking about warranties. Hey, look, When I talked to you about our warranty earlier, our warranty is a true blue lifetime warranty. You know, you talked about Renewal by Anderson. What a great company they are. Fantastic. It's a fantastic product. It is a one-of-a-kind product. It is a proprietary product. And the only place in the world you can get it is from Renewal by Anderson. However, though their product is good as it is, they also carry the worst warranty in the industry. Depending on what year you buy your windows, they either have a 22 and 10-year warranty, or they have a 32 and 10-year warranty, and here's what that means. Now, granted, the argument that they can make is they make a product that lasts forever, and that's awesome. But my father used to sit there and say it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Our warranty ensures you that you're always going to have it when it's needed. Unlike a warranty like Renewal by Anderson, cannot sit there and say that if you're beyond the 20 or the 32 and the 10-year part of it. Again, a product made to last a lifetime. But human beings were created to last forever also. And we know right now that we don't. So once again, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Would you agree with that, Mr. Customer? They'll say yes every time. Nobody says no to that. Nobody. Not when you word it like that. Nobody says no. Okay. So
You said Act God was covered under warranty. What about the neighbor kid threw a baseball through my window?
well, as long as we 100% know that it was an accident, then absolutely. I mean, you know, for example, Mr. Jenkins, that's a good thing to bring up. Let's just say you had one hell of a bad bowling night. You come into your house, you get pissed off, you throw the bowling ball onto the couch, it bounces off the couch and it goes into my window and breaks the window. Well, sir, that's an accident. Pick up the phone, give me a call. Now I'm going to want to know why there's a bowling ball stuck in the damn window. That's for sure. But that is in fact an accident. As long as it is an accident, sir, my warranty will cover that. Now, if you purposely did it because you're grouchy, well, that's a different story, sir. Being grouchy like that, you should have your insurance pay for it. You should have to sit there and pay the deductible. But as long as it's not done out of meanness. Do what?
So we don't warranty an asshole, but we'll warranty an accident.
Sure. You know,
I like that.
that's the way it works. So our warranty covers all accidental glass breakage. Okay. If you're weed eating your lawn, which happens in Dallas for sure, because nobody's got grass here in Phoenix. But if you happen to be weed eating your lawn and a rock flies up and hits my window, my warranty will cover that. Again, for as long as you own or remain in the house. However, if you ever happen to sit there and sell the house or will the house to another family member, then that warranty is transferable to the next homeowner for 20 years. Now, if you're the type of person that would sit there and say, well, that's only 20 years, that sucks. What I would sit there and tell you is, Mr. Jenkins, is you're really that worried about somebody you've never met before when you sat there and sell your house 20 years down the road after you sold it? Give me a break. Give me a break. Nobody worries about a stranger like that. Nobody does. Nobody, unless you're like Jesus, somebody like that might. But past that, nobody does. So
Hey, baby.
it's in step 5 that we're going to start pitching in step 5. All we're trying to do is get to where what's important to the customer for now, and get all the things we need to do to be that company that we are. We need them. What we need to be is what they want us to be. Okay. So I would sit there and say that, you know, and my apologies for you young ladies that are on this phone call, but fellas, at some point in time when we were growing up, teenage years, non-teenage years, whatever, anytime we sat there and saw a young lady that we really wanted to sit there and ask out or whatever and date, if there was a friend of ours that knew it, what's the first thing we did? Hey, dude. Hey, man. What is she like, bro? What is she like? Well, she doesn't like Italian food. She can't stand lacrosse. She really hates the color purple, you know, all that kind of shit. So we made sure we got all the goodies to put ourselves in a better position to be able to sit there and ask her out. And she says yes. That's what this is. This is asking your friend, what's it going to take to give me a better chance of sitting there getting her to go out on a date with me? That's what this is. The same exact thing. In the old days of selling, we used to call it hot buttons. And we used to throw things out there to wait to see how a customer would react. And if they reacted in a positive way, we used to call that a hot button. Well, the easier form of selling is instead of doing all that, just ask, what's it going to do to sell you? Then ask the damn question. That's why we ask those 2 questions the way we do. You take your old windows out is number 1, and your CPA is number 2. Those 2 questions right there should give us the roadmap as to what we need to do and where we need to be. If we did our job right, that'll give us the roadmap of where we need to go to. 100% of the time. So, any questions, thoughts, concerns, challenges, anything? No, 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 no.
Yeah, I got a question. So,
I can't hear you. I can only hear you. So,
It's Jimmy's John.
yo, Jimmy John, what's up, Jay?
okay, so when you're going through this, for example, if you ask someone, hey, what are you looking for in a company? And if they're kind of dodging the question in the same way when you gave the rebuttal about if it's, you know, if you're talking to somebody, some sales guy who doesn't really want to answer questions and he's just like, well, you know, it just depends. I just want to do research. You know, I just need to research more.
So let's do this then, Jay. Let's just play this out, right? So you be what you're trying to tell me right now. So, Mr. Johns, let me ask you a question, sir. When you do a project like this, sir, what exactly are you looking for in a company, sir? Tell me what you're looking for.
I mean, I want a company with a good reputation. That's you know, that's been around for a while. Company I know and can trust.
Okay, hold on real quick. I'll do it this way. You didn't give me the answer I thought you were going to give. I thought you were going to start pushing right away, brother.
Well, so I can go through the CPA, but like at the end of the day, when you ask that question, like for example, does this sound like a company? Does Apex sound like that type of company that you can entrust your home with? And if they're just like, well, I don't really know. I just need to do my research, and they're almost even might even hint in a way like, I'm definitely gonna not make a decision. I know what you're trying to do, and I'm gonna do my research after this, and then I'll let you know.
Kind of like they don't believe the answers that you gave them, so they're like, sounds great if it's true, but I got to research it myself first.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying.
Got you. So again, so you're talking about, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the CPA, bro. You're talking about step 4 of the company. So I'm asking you the question, based on the information I've gone with you about our company, Mr. Johns, does Apex Energy Solutions at the very least sound like the kind of company you would entrust your home to, sir?
Well, I mean, so far I'm based on what you said, but I need to do my research before I really know.
And I certainly understand that, sir. I'm making sure you're informed. There's certainly something that we all want to make sure that we do, right? I would imagine you're like everybody else, sir. You want to make sure you're getting all the information you can get so you can make the correct decision for yourself. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So that being said, sir, let me rephrase the question in a different way. Based on everything that I've told you so far about Apex Energy Solutions, is there anything that I said to you that would cause the hair on the back of your neck to stand up, the hair on your arms to stand up, or anything that's going to cause your spidey sense to sit there and say something's weird here? Is there anything at all?
No, I mean, so far based on everything that I've seen, I mean, it sounds great, you know.
Okay.
I'm looking for the product and everything else, but I will need to do a lot of research.
No, and I understand that, sir. I'm not discounting the research. Let's take the research out of it for a quick second, sir. What I'm not asking you to do is make a decision today about buying anything. I mean, you're not getting the impression that I'm asking you to buy something right now, are you?
Oh, yeah, I guess not.
Okay, so that being said, taking that part of it out for a minute, sir. The important part here, sir, is if you in your heart right now do not believe at the very least, that Apex Energy Solutions is the kind of company you can entrust your home to, sir. If you can at least believe that part of it, sir, there's nothing for us to talk about because you're certainly not going to deal with somebody that you don't trust. Would you agree with that, right?
Yeah.
So the question on the table is, based on everything I've explained to you, at the very least, does Apex Energy Solutions sound like the kind of company, again, at the very least, that you can entrust your home to so far?
Yeah, I would say so.
There you go. Again, there is no way out for a customer unless we choose to give it to them. There is no way out. There is no way out no matter what they sit there and say. Again, another example of where a customer is trying to go down the road of price and research. Okay, that's not what I asked. Stick to the question at hand. So you notice I didn't let him get away with that. You know, I understand what you're saying, sir, and I get that. However, well, we're not talking about that now. Let's get that out of the way for a second and just cover this part here for a minute. Up until this point, Does Apex Energy Solutions sound like the kind of company you would entrust your home to? At least this part of it. And then we'll go from there. I got the impression here that he feels like I'm trying to close him on a sales close, so I immediately brought it up right away. Well, sir, let me ask you a question. Do you sit there and you feel like I'm asking you to buy something, sir? Is that the impression you're getting, that I'm asking you to buy something? Well, no, you're not. Okay, so let's get that part out of the way for a minute. And let's just answer this question here, pal. This is what we got to do. Okay,
What if he said question?
do what, sir?
What if he says yes to that question? You said,
That's funny. I knew you were gonna, somebody was gonna say that, and that's a great question, and it really is. So let's play this out with you, sir. So, sir, let me ask you a question. Are you getting the impression, sir, that I'm trying to sell you something?
yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and cover it this way, sir. Let's take care of you and take care of me at the same time. Let's get this out of the way real quick. Tell you what, I would imagine, sir, you're the type of person that can sit there and keep their promise, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do this, sir. I'm not asking you to buy anything at this moment, sir. However, I will make a promise to you if you make one to me. I promise not to sell you anything if you promise not to buy anything. Okay, can you at least keep your promise, sir? Can you do that, sir? Can you keep your promise to me, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay, so check this out, sir. Here's how this is going to work. As we go through this at some point in time, sir, I am going to politely ask you for your business. At that point in time, sir, all you have to do is politely sit there and say no. From there, what we'll do is we'll shake hands and part to be buddies. And if in the future we can help one another out, that's great. And if we can't, well, then it is what it is, right? Does that sound fair enough to you?
Yeah.
Awesome. So now that we got that part out of the way, sir, I'll ask you again then. Based on the information I've shared with you so far, and I'm gonna hit him right back with it. Okay. Again, there's nothing there that I said that's bad. There's nothing there that's pushy. There's nothing there that's ugly. But if this is the impression that this customer has, then we got to shake this shit off right now and address this thing right away. So the easiest way to do it in this case is, yeah, I do feel like you're trying to sell me on something. Cool. Let's get this out of the way right now. A, I'm not doing that. So I apologize if you feel that way. However, are you the type of person that can keep a promise? Yes, I am. Cool. I am too. So let's make a pact between you and I right now. I promise not to sell you anything if you promise not to buy nothing. Can you keep your promise? Yes, I can. Awesome. So now that we got that out of the way, here's how this is going to work. At some point in time, I'm going to politely ask you for your business. At that point in time, all you got to do is politely say no. And if we can help each other out, great. And if we can, at the very least, we'll shake hands and part to be buddies. But now that we got that out of the way, goddammit, let's get back into the damn question. Answer the question. And we're going to go right back into it. I'll bet you money he'll answer that question now. I bet you he will.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Thank
sense
you.
back there, partner? Does that make sense, brother?
Absolutely. Sir.
Hey, you know what? When I get to Dallas, no joke, I'm going to sit there and want to play basketball with James Harden. I'm not kidding. I may have a heart attack when I'm out there, but I'm still going to want to do it.
Let's do it.
As long as we're playing in the 4 foot and under league, just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt, remind me, we're gonna have to get one of those little mini little tyke hoops for the office for these guys.
That'll work. So, all right. Any questions about what we've gone over so far? Anything, guys? Because at this point in time, we're going to be kind of done here. So, anything? Is there anything you want to go over in regards to this portion of it only?
Yes, Terry, I do have a question.
Fire away, boss.
Your first hot button question, is that at the end of step 2 of the warm up or the beginning of step 3 during the inspection?
Yes to both, because it's actually in between. Okay.
Okay.
So basically, the way that works is we've warmed up. We felt like we've warmed up enough. Okay, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, look, Windows. I know you guys want to talk about Windows. I apologize that I sit there and chatter like a chipmunk, but let's get into that for a quick second. Okay. When you take your old windows out and put your new windows in, what exactly you want your new windows to do for you? Be specific. What do you want? Okay. You can get into it right there if you want to, but you just have to make sure that you're asking that question before you inspect. What you cannot do is ask that question after you inspect. It's got to be before, because we need the answers so we can use them in our inspection. Okay. And it's a subliminal thing, right? We want to make sure that we're saying, when you take out your old windows and put in your new window, what do you want your new windows to do for you, folks? And be specific. What do you want, Mr. Jones? What do you want, Mrs. Jones? I need those answers to put on my talking pad. So when I go to inspect, I can use those answers, you know, like, I see why you said energy efficiency, boss. I see that now. Standard single pane aluminum windows, blah, 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 blah. And then we're going to go through all of that. You know, you also talked about the dirt and the dust. Well, the window's out of square. This is splitting over here. Your weather stripping is shot. This is why we're getting dirt and dust. I can see that. Let me ask you, do you have anybody in the house that has any allergies or anybody that has asthma? Okay. Other than people that have already talked to me before, let me ask you this question here. Is there anybody on this phone call that believes that better windows can help some people with diseases? You think windows can help with a disease other than asthma?
Yes.
Yes.
Who said yes?
Portland.
Well, Portland doesn't count. You don't count. You already knew the answer to this one. That's called, you know what? Hold on. I'm sure you guys can sit there and see.
James Harden says yes.
Now he's just weird.
Okay. So the answer to the question, though, is yes, you are correct. So one of the diseases that good windows help is lupus. Okay. For those of you who are not familiar with lupus, I would strongly suggest that your homework tonight, or at least one of the homework things tonight, is to check lupus out. Find out what lupus is. You'll be surprised how often you actually run across that in somebody's home. You will be surprised. Okay. But better windows will 100% help people with lupus. People with lupus are photosensitive. They have a real big problem with UV rays. Big problem. That is a major problem for them. So the amount of UV that are produced by sunlight is a big deal. Okay, that's a big deal. Phil here in Phoenix actually ran across one that was exactly like that. Wife had lupus. The funny thing was, when Phil explained to him about lupus and how it works, the customer didn't even realize that UV light is a problem for his wife, who has had lupus for 7 years. And neither one of them knew. Neither one knew. But Phil was able to sit there and Google it, pull it up, and it says right here, photosensitivity. You got a problem with UV light, dude. Our windows cut back on 88 to 91% of the UV rays. So again, there are other reasons other than heating and cooling costs. The part that I want to get you guys away from is get off of all that goddamn heating and cooling cost crap. Okay? Heating and cooling is a benefit, yes, but it is not the major benefit. There are other things that mean more. If you sit there and you pound away at heating and cooling costs, then the constant fight you're always going to get is, well, I'm never going to recoup my money when I buy these things. I'm never going to recoup my money. I'm never going to recoup my money. Okay. So we have to look at all the other things that make it actually better. Okay. We have to look at the other things. What happened, Phil?
Portland sheets.
Okay, so, questions though, anybody? Questions?
Yeah, Terry, is there a script for all this that we can have access to at some point?
For what part?
Well, I guess all of it, parts 1 through 4.
Well, you have the script 1 through 4 so far.
I have bullet points and I've taken notes.
I'm sorry, Kate, were you not able to sit there and get out what I sent you, Mija?
Let them know. Wait, the overview?
So and that's okay, if it didn't get out, that's okay. So what I have here that you're hearing me is like, for example, right here. Try to find the camera. So here is our, the 3 closes. It's word for word right here. Okay.
Hey,
So you
Terry.
have that.
Terry, I printed out this one here, which was the one that you originally had sent to me like a month or something ago. Like, I don't think you sent out another one. I don't have another one.
Yeah, I don't think I got that, Terry. I got a
I
bullet
sent
point.
it out over, check your email. I sent it out over the weekend, guys.
We've got it here.
The one you sent out.
Oh, is that the one that I sent you, Matt? Because I thought it was just the bullet points.
One that you
The right
sent
one.
out,
Okay.
bullet point.
I mean, it's bullet points, but it's the script.
Yeah.
But it's not really. I mean, what he's asking for, just to clarify, is like where the agenda is written out, that portion, like it is on this one here, where it says like get agenda, and this is all written out. Because
See,
the
I
one
can't, your camera is off in your place, Miss Cody. I can't see what you're showing, brother.
Cody, it's off the iPad camera.
No, Terry, swipe over so you can see all of them.
Oh.
It's because the iPad was the one. So this is the one you had sent out to me a while ago that has like scripted out things. This is what you sent out like the other day. That's just bullet.
Okay, that's weird. I'll resend it again because I sent it out on Sunday, I believe it was.
But Terry, this is the one where you had like the times, like Tuesday start time 8:30, 12, when I called you to ask the questions about it, but this doesn't have the actual like scripted out portions. It has bullet points, but it doesn't have even like the 3 closes. Like it just says special trip, open mind, waste of time. It doesn't actually have them written underneath it. Unless there's something else that other people got.
Yeah, there.
We have
So
We have
let me do this. Hold on for a minute. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know why it didn't go through. Hold on, let me just pull it up real quick.
I got that one, Terry, but only went to step 4. Do you have are you gonna send out the rest of them?
Yeah, I'll send out the rest of it as we get through the week. What I didn't want to do is get it all out at one time and everybody starts reading ahead because that's what always happens.
Oh, Terry, I did just find it. So it's because you sent out 2. You sent out the agenda bullet point one first, which I think was on Sunday, and then yesterday you sent out these things to be aware of, like class starts on time each day, and then you had it at the bottom of that one as well. But I just thought that was the same exact one.
Okay, so you have it now then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. My fault. Well, not only that, guys, if I send more than one email out, that's a shocker to everybody. So if Kate and Mark and everybody, if you'll check the email I sent out yesterday, you'll have that on there. It'll say 10-step selling program. It'll have the first 4 steps. So, Michael, I think you were the one that asked the question, right, brother? Michael?
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Michael, are you still there, out there in Seattle?
Yeah, Terry, can you-
Okay.
Oh,
I-
yeah.
I think what you're looking for, boss. Kate, we can print up for you, because I sent that out to everybody.
all right, sounds good.
The problem is with Kate and all of them is they hardly ever get emails from me. So if I send one, they probably only get like one every, I don't know, 12 days. So, Kate may not have seen that, that's why. So I should have sent out a text message, Kate. Sorry about that, Mia.
I understand, but it has more than what's in here.
More common.
Okay. So, any questions at all? Does anybody have any questions about inspecting, first off?
No, I think it's all pretty good for me.
Okay.
A lot of times when acting, we'll be talking about like condensation or the problems. A lot of homeowners will start talking about what they want, like, oh, I want to put a picture window here. I want to change this. Are you entertaining those conversations, or are we just pushing those off?
You kind of push those off, when a customer sits there when you're inspecting and they go, yeah, I got 2 mold units right here. I'd like to put a picture window in there. Your response is, we could probably go ahead and do that, folks. Not a problem.
No, it's fine. Yeah. No.
Part of the reason why we give the agenda is for that very reason right there, Matt. Because we gave the agenda before we inspected, right? When a customer brings that up, then we can sit there and tell them, you know what? We could certainly go ahead and do that, and we'll look into that for you. Once we go ahead and get through this, and I tell you a little bit about the company so you know who you're talking to, we're going to give you all the many window options that we have. And then at that time, we'll be able to go ahead and cover this and get some measurements and things like that for that. Will that work for an answer for right now, folks? Is that okay with you for right now? That's usually your best way to say that, is always going to be push it off a little bit. We're going to address it, but then push it off. And then just ask him, is that an acceptable answer for you for right now? Because I am going to cover that, but are we good for right now on that? And 99 times out of 100, they'll tell you, yeah, that's fine. We're good. Yeah. You explain that to me. So yeah, well, I'm okay with that. So that's how I would do that, Matt.
So just so I'm clear, so we're doing the inspection. Are we also measuring and doing all that at the same time, or do you go around twice?
You go around twice. Okay, so
You go around twice.
that is a very, 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 very good question, Mr. Jenkins. That is a good question for sure. The biggest mistake, in my opinion, and keep in mind this is an opinion, that window sales reps make is they try to inspect and measure at the same time. So here's where
That's
the
how
problem.
I've done it.
I know, because Renewal by Anderson, depending on which one you were out of, some of them teach it, some of them don't. Okay. A lot of this stuff, I'll just say this, a lot of the stuff so far, Mr. Jenkins, that you're hearing, you're probably sitting there saying, oh, yep, I've heard that. Yep, I've heard that. Renewal by Anderson. Yep, I've heard that. Okay. Right or wrong, sir?
No, absolutely, about half and half. Yep.
Okay, so let me explain to everybody on this phone call, number one, why that is, so we all understand. When Renewal by Anderson put out Fibrex in 1991, they basically did the same thing that Pella did. Everybody in the world sold their shit. And what they found out is they weren't selling anything. It didn't nowhere near work as well or as good as they wanted it to. So what Renewal by Anderson did is they went out and they sucked up all the best players that they could get from the best window company in the country selling windows, which was a company called Pacesetter. All the old Pacesetter boys came in and they started teaching Renewal by Anderson how to pitch, what they need to do, how they need to do it, the whole bit. The reason why some of this is so familiar to you, Mr. Jenkins, is because I worked for Pacesetter for 10.5 years before Fibrex was even invented. I was part of that farm program that helped Pella or Renewal by Anderson on how to pitch. So a lot of this stuff is very similar. All right. The mistake that sales reps make, though, is this. How many times have you been in a house, sir, when you have measured and inspected at the same time? And then when you're done, the customer starts pressuring you for a price, for a price, for a price, for a price. You know,
Right.
happens a lot. Okay. The
Oh,
reason why
yeah.
the reason why it happens is because you measure. That's why. Every single solitary customer is always going to tell you you're the first company that came out. Okay. Here's what I would sit there and say to you, Mr. Jenkins. Obviously I'm not standing in front of you, so I'm only going by a video, but I would have to assume that once upon a time, sir, you were an athlete. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Sir, no matter how good you were, you have never been in first place as many times as you are when you're pitching windows. Every time you go to a customer's house, they always tell you, oh, you're the first person to come out. You're the first person. I have never been first place that many times in my entire life. And I'm
That's
goddamn
true, yeah.
years old. And I'm damn near 60. But in the window industry, I'm always first every time I go to somebody's house. Oh, you're the first person to come
Right.
out here. By God. Okay. The challenge is, though, is we know most of those people are lying. What happens is the customer knows that the moment you put a measuring tape on a window or a door, they now know you can give them a price. So what happens is when you inspect and you measure at the same time, either the customer sits there, either the customer tunes you out more often than not, or all of a sudden they start doing this shit here. Look, man, I got to go, man. Can you just give me and email it to me? So what happens is we lose control. So try it this way. Everybody on this call, try it this way. Measure and inspect at the same time, and then do them separately. And I will bet you, if you give me an honest run, I'll beat you. You'll get more people to pay attention longer. And you keep control of things more often when you separate the two. But when you do it together at the same time, they'll start pressuring you for a price. All of a sudden, they got somewhere to go. Just go ahead and email it to me and all this other business. That's the reason why we separate the two. The problem is you can't inspect and measure on the back end, because then what you're not doing is walking the customer through all the pain points that we have to walk them through so we can offer all the solutions that we need to offer to those pain points. So you have to measure first, or inspect first, and then we will measure on the back end. And what you'll find is you'll keep more control of those customers. But you do them both at the same time, and you're going to start getting a lot more. Just email me. I got to go. Can I just hurry up and get a price? I don't want to be doing all this shit. I got things to do. I'm an important person, blah, 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 blah. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So, any other questions? Anybody? Any other questions? Okay. Again, what we cannot do is you cannot sit there and measure and inspect. I'm telling you now, if you do that, your clothes will suffer for it versus separating it. On a stack of Bibles and a pile of rosary beads, neck high to a giraffe, I swear.
Hey, Terry.
Neck high to tall Matt, because he's about as tall as a giraffe.
Terry, are you ever taking photos during inspection? Is that part of that, or is that more in the measure, or are you taking photos in any of those?
Well, I don't take photos when I'm inspecting or anything like that, but on a job that I sell for sure, we're going to use company cam, and we will take pictures at that point there for sure. We have to take at least a bare minimum of 4 pictures for sure. So, but do I actually take pictures during an inspection? I do not, me personally, sir. I don't. Do I think there's some merit in it? There might be, to be able to sit there and show the customer. There might be, but for the most part, I do not.
Is that because you don't want to take your Polaroid camera with you to the appointment, Terry?
No, it isn't the Polaroid camera. I now have a cell phone, but the problem is when I walk up to most windows and I'm having to take this like this, then I only get pictures of the middle of the window down, and everything else like this. So I walk up to a window and I sit there and I'm doing one of these. It makes it more difficult for me to go ahead and do that, to be honest with you.
Well, that's probably why you take the homeowner around the house with you, so you can hop up on their shoulders and get the photos.
Well, when you're 242 pounds, you tend to not get on anybody's shoulders. You know, you tend to not sit there and do that. But
But we don't run.
again,
With.
having to hold stuff up is kind of a drag.
Okay, every time you say, I'm not gonna sit there and do that, we all gotta take a shot of coffee.
You know? So, well, and again, you understand why I don't do it. Plus, if like in Dallas, where they have these 96-inch tall double hungs, can you imagine me standing in front of a double hung and doing like this and taking a picture of the top half of it? It'll look like it's 2 stories tall. Only in my mind do I think I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Only in my mind. But I have a cool red stool that says, step up to be tall, sit down to be small.
Nice.
Great.
So, all right, guys, if nobody else has any more questions, for those of you, real quick, let's write my telephone number down, please. Telephone number is going to be area code 915 525 1594. Okay.
One more time.
Area code 915 525 1594. Okay. That is my direct cell number. Pretty good about answering my phone unless I'm on the phone, and I'll usually shoot you back a text message saying I'll call you right back, and I'll call you back as quick as I can. Other than that, if we have questions about that, please give me a call. But what I would encourage all the SSPs to do first, though, is to talk to your MSPs, okay, about this. The MSPs have worked real hard to try to sit there and catch up on all this. This is very new to them as well. It's certainly different than what Apex have sat there has taught. But they've worked real hard to try to sit there and get their head wrapped around this. I don't think any of them, though, are, you know, it's not above any of them to sit there and say, you know what, that's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that one. Let's call Shorty up and then go ahead and give me a call. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to go behind the MSP's back, guys. I don't want to do any of that. They've worked real hard to try to sit there and keep up with this and learn a new thing basically overnight. And it is difficult for them too. So, you know,
Respect your.
the other thing that you can do is you can also, if you can't get a hold of me, MSPs, call Phil. Okay. His telephone number is 915.
Hi, Phil.
Hi.
There he is. Hello.
How are you guys?
Hi, Phil.
Hi, Phil. So,
What's Phil's number? 915?
915 472 3480. 915 472 3480. Phil would be a good person to talk to on some of this as well. He's only been listening to this shit for the last 5 years. So he's only been trained one way, and the 10-step program is all he knows. And a good talk and a good resource as well, as I'm sure Mr. Jenkins is. Phil sold Renewal by Anderson as well. He has sold Pella as well. And he has certainly talked to me an awful long time about different windows and things like that. So he's a good resource as well. All right, sports fans, I will let everybody go. Tomorrow, we will jump back on this again. And we will pound away at this. Starting tomorrow, however, on some of this. We're gonna start role playing some of this out. Amongst everybody in there. And this is the easy part, guys. This is easy. Step 1 through 4 is the easy part. Where shit will get way weird, especially for those people that don't know Windows. Next week, this gets gnarly next week. I will warn everybody that that doesn't know anything about Windows. If you fall behind on this easy part this week, I'm telling you right now, you will never catch up once we get into next week. You never will. It becomes a lot. And for those of you who do know Windows, we're going to find out next week how much you really know, because I will most certainly start quizzing everybody on this thing, keeping in mind when I do, this has nothing to do with showing anybody up. This has everything to do with finding out what window people really know and what they really don't know, and how we will capitalize on the mistakes that other companies make. So nobody's getting called out in front of anybody just to sit there and show anybody up. That's bullshit. I don't operate that way. I would never do you chili that way at all. However, it may seem that way at times. My apologies up front if it does. It is not the intention at all. Not at all. Okay. Other than that, let's go get them. And those seniors, juniors that are turning into seniors, let's go crush some doors.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate you.
Seattle, I'll see
Thanks,
you
Terry.
guys next week, just so you guys know. Kate, they know I'm coming in, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Look forward to it. Love you guys. You guys all be good. Thanks everybody for your courtesy and your time, guys.
Thanks, Terry.
Peace.
Thanks,
I'm out.
Terry.
Yep.